If you like the story, you can support the author on Patreon. Link is in the description.
Chapter 101, Foundations of an Empire. The conversion process will take months, Daniel explained, spreading financial documents across the conference table. But I've established 17 shell companies across multiple jurisdictions. The money will flow through legitimate investment returns, consulting fees, and strategic acquisitions. Arthur nodded, impressed by the elegant complexity. Timeline: 6 months for full legitimization. But we can begin investing immediately with the clean funds, about 30% of the total. It had been 3 weeks since Morrison's visit. True to her word, bureaucratic obstacles appeared at every turn. License applications mysteriously delayed. Regulatory reviews that should take days stretched to weeks. Inspectors arrived with suspicious frequency. Daniel handled it all with practiced ease. The FSA inspectors coming back tomorrow, he mentioned casually. 3rd visit this week. Let me guess, anonymous tip about irregularities. Money laundering concerns this time. Daniel's smile held no humor. I've prepared another spotless audit trail for their review. Arthur watched him work, noting the efficiency born from experience. You've dealt with this before. When my first company took off, established players used the same playbook, Daniel confirmed. This time, they're more persistent. And they have government backing, but so do I. Speaking of which, Arthur leaned back. Let me know when it becomes unbearable. I'm fine with their rules, but I can return their favors with interest. A few creative headaches might improve their focus. Daniel actually grinned. I might cash that check. It's manageable now, but once we're fully operational, these delays could cost millions. Give me the word. They'll discover urgent priorities elsewhere. Arthur's smile promised mischief. A few harmless pranks already building in his mind. Daniel, by the way, Arthur, are you sure we should invest in American tech startups? Most of them have no profits, astronomical valuations, and are burning through cash. It's the definition of a high-risk bubble. I know, Arthur replied, his smile serene. That's why we're going to buy as much as we can, as quietly as we can. Daniel stared at him, trying to find a flicker of jest in his expression. There was none. This is gambling, not investing. This is throwing money at a lottery ticket. It's not gambling, Arthur corrected gently, when you already know when the bubble is going to burst. The statement hung in the air. Daniel had learned not to question the source of Arthur's inexplicable insights. He had witnessed magic firsthand, foreknowledge of the stock market seemed almost mundane by comparison. I'll draft the strategy, he conceded. Perfect. You handle that while I build our foundation. While Daniel waged war in the courts of finance and regulation, Arthur built the empire's bones. Every core applicant, from the head of analytics to the chief legal counsel, underwent a final interview with the company's silent, unseen partner. They would sit in a comfortable office, speaking with Daniel, while Arthur observed from the shadows, invisible and unheard. He didn't care about their resumes, he cared about their intentions. A subtle, passive legitimacy probe was all it took. Arthur was ruthless. Only those with clean ambition and a genuine desire to build were welcomed into the fold. The foundation of Phoenix Group would be solid steel. Next, he built the group's sword and shield. The security department demanded his special attention. You want to spar with me? Asked a former SAS trooper named Marcus Thorne, a mountain of a man with scars that told a dozen violent stories. He looked down at Arthur, who was dressed in simple workout gear, with undisguised disbelief. Son, I don't want to hurt you. They stood in the center of a private gym below the main office. 10 of the best security operatives money could buy. Applicants for the new internal security division watched from the sidelines. Consider it part of the vetting process, Arthur said with a pleasant smile. Land one clean hit on me, you're hired. Head of security goes to the first one who manages it. A murmur of interest went through the group. Thorne just shrugged. Your funeral. He lunged, a surprisingly fast move for a man his size, aiming for a simple takedown. Arthur sidestepped, the motion fluid and economical. Thorne's momentum carried him past, and Arthur's hand shot out, striking 2 pressure points on his neck with surgical precision. The giant soldier froze, his entire body locking up. His eyes went wide with shock and confusion as he crashed to the mat, completely paralyzed but fully conscious. Anyone else? Arthur asked, his gaze sweeping over the other stunned applicants. One by one, they all tried. People with accomplished resumes. Each was an elite killer in his own right. Arthur had set the pay high, so the best of the best had applied. However, every one of them was defeated in under 30 seconds. Arthur used no magic, only his peak human physique, combined with a fighting style that was nothing like they had ever experienced. He didn't brutalize them. He simply outthought, outmaneuvered, and neutralized them with embarrassing ease. Thorn, having recovered, got to his feet, his face a mask of awe and respect. "Who the hell are you?" "The man who signs your paychecks," Arthur replied brightly. "Welcome to the Phoenix Group. As for the head of security position, that remains open. I'll test you all monthly. The one who shows the most improvement gets the job." He left them standing there, a potent mixture of bruised ego and fierce determination simmering in the air. He had his security team. With the mundane handled, he secured the magical. 2 nights were spent weaving a complex lattice of wards around the Phoenix Group building and Daniel's new, heavily secured home. They were a modified version of the protections around his own home. They would repel scrying, block apparition, and alert him to any hostile magical intent. They were his silent, unseen guardians. The final piece of his foundation was the masterpiece. "Roll up your shirt," Arthur instructed one evening. Daniel eyed the glowing needle warily. "Is this going to hurt?" "Probably." Arthur began the delicate work. But the benefits outweigh temporary discomfort. The phoenix took shape across Daniel's back, its wings spreading protectively, lines of quicksilver fire knitting themselves into his flesh. The sensation was not pain, but an invasive, overwhelming infusion of pure energy. Arthur had spent weeks perfecting this piece of magic, a concept stolen from Voldemort but refined and repurposed. The dark mark was a brand of slavery. This would be a sigil of partnership. And loyalty. "What is this?" Daniel gasped, looking at the shimmering tattoo in a mirror. "It's a gift," Arthur said honestly. "Threat detection, an emergency beacon to me, and powerful mental shields. Think of it as a permanent, upgraded version of the locket." He watched the magic settle. "It also provides a minor physical enhancement. Faster reflexes, better stamina. Nothing superhuman. Just optimization." He deliberately left one feature out. The tattoo was a two-way street. It would broadcast any true thought of betrayal directly to him. Daniel flexed his shoulders, a look of wonder on his face. "I feel different. Stronger." "The magic is integrating," Arthur said, cleaning his wand. "Fair warning. It's permanent. No removal, magical or otherwise." "I wasn't planning on it." Daniel's voice carried quiet certainty. "This is my life now." The new year arrived, painting London in shades of grey and silver. The Phoenix Group was a roaring success, a financial juggernaut in the making. Daniel was a celebrated genius, the security team was a well-oiled machine, and the company's core personnel were loyal and effective. The machine ran itself. Which meant Arthur could address old debts. He'd vanished from Kamarage without a word, a departure that now felt rude and ungrateful. It was time to close that chapter properly. He stood in his study, raising a hand. With a familiar, circular motion, he tore a hole in reality. A vortex of golden sparks erupted, revealing the serene, sun-drenched courtyard of Kamarage. Leaving the world of finance and intrigue behind, Arthur Hayes stepped through the portal. His first stop, before greeting any old friends, was the chamber of the Sorcerer Supreme. Chapter 102, Farewell to the Sanctuary. The portal sealed behind Arthur with a whisper of golden sparks, leaving him in Kamarage's familiar courtyard. Mountain air, thin and crisp, filled his lungs with memories of simpler times. He didn't linger. The Ancient One would be expecting him. Her chamber door stood open as always, an invitation that was also a gentle command. She sat by the window, steam rising from a delicate cup, her gaze fixed on distant peaks. The scene felt choreographed, as if she'd been frozen in this exact position since he'd left. She didn't turn as he entered. "I wondered when you'd remember us, Mr. Hayes." Her voice was a calm melody, laced with a serene, knowing amusement. Arthur bowed deeply. "Many things required my attention. After our last conversation, circumstances evolved. So you pursued that path after all." No judgment in her tone, only the quiet curiosity of a being watching ripples in a pond. Interfering in the mundane world. There was no other way. Arthur settled into the chair across from her as a cup of jasmine tea appeared on the table between them. The crime lords grew paranoid after my initial strikes. They began investigating potential threats, hunting shadows. They would have found me eventually, but their search was already leaving bodies in its wake. Innocent bodies. The Ancient One sipped thoughtfully. A noble justification. And the outcome? I had my revenge and delivered justice, Arthur stated, his voice carrying a quiet, final satisfaction. Secretly, carefully. No one knows how it was done. No traces were left behind. And the consequences? She pressed gently. Actions create echoes, Arthur. What did yours create? Chaos, he admitted without hesitation. The European underworld erupted. A feeding frenzy. There was violence, power struggles, and yes, innocent deaths. Entries on your cosmic ledger, then, the Ancient One murmured. It wasn't an accusation, but a quiet clarification. Perhaps. Arthur met her ancient gaze, his own unwavering. But I believe I prevented more deaths than I inadvertently caused. To contain the chaos, I had to act again. I performed a cleanup. Removed the worst opportunists, the most violent contenders. Things went quiet. Briefly. A faint, weary smile touched her lips. I tried a similar approach once. A long time ago. Her gaze turned distant. It did not last. I imagine new players have already taken the board. They have, Arthur confirmed. Sooner than I expected. And will you perform another cleanup? No. Arthur shook his head. I recognized the endless cycle. My direct revenge is complete. I am satisfied for now. When I find a complete solution, perhaps I'll try again. Until then. He shrugged. I see. She studied him, her gaze seeming to peel back the layers of his soul. It took me several such cycles to learn that lesson. You learn quickly. So what does life hold for Arthur Hayes now? I won't be visiting Kamarage often. I'm moving on. Are you concerned I would disapprove? She asked, a gentle challenge in her voice. You have broken no rules here. You are always welcome to continue your training. I appreciate that, more than you know, he said sincerely. But my decision isn't based on fear of disapproval. It's simply that the hermit life, it isn't for me. Since university didn't work out, I found a new project. Oh. I'm building a business empire. The Ancient One's eyebrows rose a fraction of an inch, the most surprise she had ever shown him. I did not take you for one who desired material things. It was a childhood dream, Arthur explained. Perhaps a legitimate enterprise can create more positive change than a vigilante in shadows ever could. Different power, different influence, potentially greater impact. Nothing prevents you from portaling here daily for training while building your empire. She pointed out. No, Arthur agreed. But I won't. If the other sorcerers see that it's possible to learn mystic arts and then return to the world to build fortunes, their ambitions might change. The mission to protect this planet could be corrupted by greed. The Ancient One nodded slowly. A valid concern. Also, I've made powerful enemies recently. I'd rather not lead them here. Arthur's smile turned rueful. Leading them here, even accidentally, would be unforgivable. This place must remain untainted by my choices. You carry too many burdens that aren't yours to bear. She rose with liquid grace. But your reasoning is sound. You're unlike most who seek sanctuary here. It is good you have found a new purpose. A life without one is a terribly boring affair. I may not visit often, Arthur promised, but if my help is ever needed, I will come in an instant. I know. Her smile held warmth. Visit the others before you go. They've missed you. The next hours passed in a blur of reunions. Master Hamir and Master Singh inquired about his training and meditation practices with genuine interest. Even the typically stoic Master Chen smiled at his return. He kept his explanations vague but honest, a new chapter and different goals. They accepted his words with the wisdom of those who'd seen many students come and go. He also spoke briefly with the few trainees he considered acquaintances, his departure causing a small stir of gossip and speculation. As he was preparing to leave, a voice cut through the courtyard's quiet chatter. A moment of your time, Hayes. It was Caecilius. His eyes burned with the same desperate intensity as the last time they'd spoken. He led Arthur to a secluded alcove, away from prying ears. Still trying to catch up to me? Arthur attempted levity. I'll surpass you soon enough. Caecilius's smile held no warmth. Especially now that you're abandoning your studies. Abandoning implies I'm finished. I'm simply taking a sabbatical. Call it what you want. Caecilius stepped closer. What have you really been doing these missing months? What's so important that you'd leave this behind? I've achieved what I came here for, Arthur replied evenly. Now I'm continuing my journey. Caecilius's hands clenched into fists. Can you help me achieve mine? Is it really not possible with magic? Caecilius, Arthur said, his tone softening slightly. Resurrection isn't possible. In the wizarding world, we believe that death is but the next great adventure. Your wife, your son, they have gone on. Perhaps they're living new lives, at peace. Would they truly want to be dragged back from that? That's not possible. That's a lie they tell us to accept loss. Caecilius's hands clenched. You don't know that, Arthur countered calmly. And neither do I. You want to bring them back for your own sake, to ease your own pain. Have you considered what they would want? He leaned in slightly. Find a new goal. One that would make them proud of the man you've become, not one that would lead you down a path they would despise. You know nothing of what they would want. And neither do you, Arthur shot back, his voice sharp enough to make Caecilius flinch. Think on that. He paused, his expression turning serious. A warning. Be careful of things that seem too good to be true. Quick paths to power always have a price. If you find some dark ritual in a forbidden book, I suggest you read the fine print. There is always a catch. What are you suggesting? Caecilius whispered. I'm suggesting you not let grief make you stupid. Arthur gripped his shoulder. You're brilliant, Caecilius. One of the best natural sorcerers I've seen. Don't waste that gift chasing ghosts. Caecilius remained silent, jaw tight with suppressed emotion. Consider my words, Arthur continued. And remember this. If you choose that dark path, if you threaten this sanctum or this planet, I will be there to stop you. That's not a threat, just fact. With that, Arthur turned and walked away, leaving Caecilius alone with his consuming thoughts. He found the Ancient One waiting for him near the main gate. I overheard your conversation, she said quietly. Unlike you to try to change his thoughts. Have high hopes of changing his future. Arthur shrugged. Unknown. But watching genius turn to evil without trying to prevent it would haunt me. If he falls anyway, I'll return to stop him. Noble sentiment. She studied him with those ageless eyes. Goodbye for now, Mr. Hayes. Remember, this will always be a sanctuary for you. I will be back, he said, opening a shimmering portal back to his London study. I have not completed my journey in the mystic arts. For now, I will practice on my own. Consider it independent study. I'll return for higher studies. Good. Her smile carried layers of meaning. Arthur opened his portal, London's grey light spilling through. Goodbye, Sorcerer Supreme. Thank you for everything. I'll see you soon. As he stepped through the swirling vortex of sparks, her final words followed him, echoing in his mind as the portal snapped shut. We will see each other again, Arthur Hayes. And perhaps sooner than you think. Chapter 103, The Art of Persuasion. The moment the portal to Kamarage snapped shut, the serene silence of the mountains was replaced by the low, ambitious hum of London. The Ancient One's final words still echoed in his mind. Sooner than you think. It hadn't been a warning, not truly. There was no alarm in her tone, only a calm certainty. Arthur mentally filed the ominous message away. Vague prophecies were a drain on energy. When the future came knocking, he would answer. Until then, he had an empire to build. Now that the farewells were done, it was time to get back to work. Within 3 weeks, Phoenix Group was a finely tuned engine of commerce. The core team Daniel had assembled proved their worth daily, the office buzzing with controlled energy. Analysts pored over the Financial Times and stared into the green glow of Bloomberg terminals, traders shouted into phones, and lawyers ensured every move was insulated by mountains of paperwork. But the real magic happened each morning in Arthur's study. On days when the market was poised for a major shift, he would wake to find a crisp note on his desk, written in his own hand. It would detail technology stocks that were about to spike, currencies on the verge of fluctuation, or commodities ready for a dramatic swing. He'd forward the intel to Daniel, who would then orchestrate the day's trades with the added advantage of prescience. At the end of the day, Daniel would provide a summary, Arthur would rewrite the morning's note, and then use a time turner to travel back in time to leave the note for his past self to find, completing the time loop. On days with no note, he rested. Phoenix Group didn't just succeed, it exploded. The profits were astronomical. Your instincts are uncanny, Daniel said during a review, gesturing to a chart showing a near vertical profit line. We're up 300% in 6 weeks. I read the patterns carefully, Arthur replied blandly, gesturing at a stack of newspapers. Daniel's knowing look suggested he suspected far more, but he was smart enough not to probe. Results spoke louder than methods. Unfortunately, that kind of success drew sharks. They're getting bolder, Daniel reported, his voice tight with frustration over their secure line. Planted articles questioning our stability. Political pressure for forensic audits. Someone's orchestrating this. I'll handle it, Arthur said simply. He knew this was his cue. It was time to play. It didn't take long to map the conspiracy. A few rival investment firms, 2 members of parliament on their payroll, and a secret push from MI6, who wanted to poke the hornet's nest to see what would fly out. To his surprise, it wasn't Director Morrison leading the charge. A new, ambitious man had taken over the case. With a list of names in hand, Arthur smiled. They wanted to play games? He was more than happy to oblige. Marcus Fitzgerald, senior partner at Fitzgerald and Associates, was having the worst day of his professional life. It started during the morning briefing. His secretary's heel caught on absolutely nothing, sending contracts flying across the conference room like confetti. As he bent to help, his coffee mug spontaneously developed a crack, depositing the dark roast across his expensive suit. "Get me a new shirt," he barked into the intercom. The replacement arrived as his most important client settled into the conference room. Fitzgerald reached for his Mont Blanc to sign the 8-figure deal. The pen exploded with theatrical timing, destroying contract and shirt alike in an ink-apocalypse. By lunch, he'd slipped on a mysteriously appearing banana peel, split his trousers sitting down too quickly, and somehow managed to knock over an entire filing cabinet, burying the quarterly reports he needed. "It's like I'm cursed," he muttered to his secretary. She maintained professional silence while privately wondering if she should update her CV. MP Reginald Thornberry fared no better. His speech to the Financial Services Committee started well enough. Then the microphone died. The backup microphone produced only ear-splitting feedback. Later, attempting to impress constituents at a charity luncheon, he reached for his water glass. His hand knocked it over, sending ice water across a noble lady's silk dress. His profuse apologies were interrupted when his chair collapsed beneath him. "Manufacturing defect," the venue insisted. By week's end, after his Bentley developed 4 flat tires simultaneously and his toupee was carried off by an inexplicably aggressive pigeon during a BBC interview, Thornberry was consulting fortune tellers in Hampstead about lifting curses. Deputy Director Hartwell of MI6 maintained his composure longer than the others. MI6 trained its people well. But even he cracked when the photocopier exploded during his inspection, coating him in toner. In another incident, the fire suppression system that activated only above his desk when he had a lot of papers out. There was also the deeply unfortunate matter of his telephone becoming dysfunctional during important calls. "It's Hayes," he announced at his morning briefing. "Has to be." "Evidence?" his aide asked, taking notes by hand. "I sat on my desk and it collapsed." "My desk? The one that's been here since 1952. Made of English oak. Could be coincidence. My tea tastes like fish. Only mine. We tested it. Same pot, everyone else's is normal." The aide wisely remained silent. From the mirror dimension, Arthur enjoyed the show with malicious glee. He was a cosmic prankster, pulling the strings of probability with subtle, untraceable charms. It was, he had to admit, the most fun he'd had in months. His nights were still free for his own magical studies via astral projection, so it wasn't even cutting into his personal development time. Pranking by day, progress by night. Perfect balance. 2 weeks of escalating mishaps finally brought things to a head. Fitzgerald and Thornberry, convinced they were victims of corporate espionage or political sabotage, took their laundry list of bizarre calamities to the one person they thought could investigate, Deputy Director Hartwell at MI6. Hartwell listened to their frantic, paranoid accounts with a grim sense of validation. Their stories, combined with his own, painted a clear picture. This wasn't bad luck. It was an attack. Armed with this new evidence, Hartwell scheduled a priority meeting with Director Morrison. He's tormenting them, Hartwell declared, sliding a dossier across her desk. Fitzgerald, Thornberry, and my own department. It's targeted harassment on a scale I've never seen. Morrison's expression was a mask of professional sympathy, but her eyes danced with amusement. What exactly do you expect me to do? Arrest Mr. Hayes for a series of unfortunate coincidences. It's not a coincidence. Hartwell snapped. It's him. It has to be. Prove it, she said simply. He couldn't, of course. That was the beautiful thing about Arthur's campaign. Nothing overtly magical, nothing traceable. Just a sustained series of maybe possible unfortunate events. Perhaps, Morrison suggested mildly, you should consider whether antagonizing Mr. Hayes was wise in the first place. It was your initial directive to apply pressure. Hartwell countered. A directive I rescinded after some reflection, Morrison said smoothly. I decided it was not a good idea to annoy someone like him. You, however, chose to proceed. I'll go to the wizarding authorities, Hartwell threatened. Good luck with that. Morrison's smile turned sharp. Last I heard, they're rather busy with actual dark wizards. Somehow I doubt they'll prioritize your wardrobe malfunctions. She was right. Amelia Bones, when contacted through official channels, had been politely dismissive over the secure phone line. We're dealing with Death Eater attacks and Voldemort's return. Unless Mr. Hayes is actually killing people, you'll have to sort it out yourselves. In the end, Hartwell had no choice but to beg. He asked Morrison to leverage her special relationship with Aurora Thatcher to mediate a truce. Aurora arrived at Arthur's door with barely concealed amusement. They're desperate. Hartwell actually cried. Did he? Arthur sipped his tea innocently. How unfortunate. He and the others are willing to compensate you for any inconvenience their attention may have caused. Are they now? Arthur pretended to consider. I suppose everyone deserves a second chance. He then slid her a piece of paper with a number scribbled on it. Aurora choked. That's extortion. That's negotiation. They cost me time and energy. Time and energy have value. He smiled pleasantly. Besides, Phoenix Group can always use additional capital. The check arrived 2 days later via courier. The harassment ceased immediately. More importantly, word spread through London's financial district via hushed phone calls and private club conversations. Phoenix Group was protected by forces best left unprovoked. With obstacles removed and coffers filled, Phoenix Group transitioned into its next phase. Arthur gradually reduced his market predictions, forcing Daniel and his team to rely on their own considerable skills and traditional analysis. Sink or swim time, he told Daniel during their last strategy meeting, gesturing at the walls covered in charts and printouts. I've given you the foundation and the tools. Now build something magnificent. Daniel nodded, understanding the test. We won't disappoint. Arthur believed him. The company was in capable hands, the team was exceptional, and the reputation they'd built would carry them far. Finally, he could rest. He was contemplating a week of doing absolutely nothing when a crack of apparition echoed through his study. Winky appeared, holding an immobilized house elf in front of her like a trophy. Master Arthur, this elf tried to force his way into the house. I stopped him. Arthur looked closely. The elf was ancient and wearing a filthy pillowcase. It could only be one creature. Winky, please release him. I believe that is Sirius's elf, Creaker. As the binding spell vanished, the ancient elf stumbled, his gaze fixing on Arthur. Hello, Creaker, Arthur said mildly. To what do I owe the pleasure? Chapter 104, The Dead Man's Moves Part 1. Master Sirius wants to meet with Wizard Hayes, Creaker said formally. Master. Arthur raised an eyebrow. It seems you two have sorted out your differences. He gestured for the elf to continue. Is there something important he needs to discuss? Creaker does not know, the house elf replied with a shrug that was almost dismissive. Master Sirius gave Creaker a letter to pass along. Creaker produced a letter from the folds of his grimy pillowcase and held it out. Arthur accepted the parchment, recognizing the rough tear from a book binding. As he unfolded it, his mind drifted back to that night at the Department of Mysteries, pulling Sirius into the mirror dimension just as Bellatrix's curse passed through empty space, the look on everyone's faces when they thought Sirius had fallen through the veil. He remembered their conversation afterward. Sirius learning the truth about Regulus's heroic sacrifice. The revelation about Horcruxes. Giving him a basilisk fang and sending him on a mission to end Voldemort's immortality. Arthur found himself genuinely curious about what Sirius had been up to this past year. 1 year earlier, Sirius Black operated into Grimmauld Place with murder in his eyes. The ancient house seemed to sense his rage, shadows writhing in corners as he stormed through dusty halls. Creaker! His voice echoed like thunder. The house elf appeared, hunched and silent. You miserable sack of filth! Sirius snarled, his voice echoing in the stone-walled room. Creaker looked up, his expression one of pure loathing. The blood trader master has returned. Has he come to throw out more of my mistress's treasures? You put Harry in danger, Sirius said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. He loomed over the tiny elf. You lured him to the ministry. He could have died. I could have died. Why? Because you hate me? You're a disgrace to every house elf who ever served with honor. Creaker simply bowed his head, his lips moving in a silent, continuous stream of curses. Filthy master, unworthy of the name Black, should have died with the Mudbloods. Sirius spent the next 10 minutes yelling, venting a lifetime of frustration, but it was like shouting at a stone wall. Finally, exhausted, he remembered Arthur's words, ask him about the last task Regulus Black gave him. He took a deep breath, his anger receding to be replaced by a cold, heavy purpose. Tell me about Regulus, he commanded. Creaker froze mid-mutter. His bulbous eyes widened slightly. Creaker will not speak of Master Regulus to the likes of you. That wasn't a request, Sirius said, his voice gaining the tone of command he so rarely used. As the last lord of this house, I order you to tell me how my brother died. The magic of the bond compelled him. Creaker shuddered, his body contorting as if in immense pain. Then, the words began to pour out. He spoke of how Regulus had proudly joined the Dark Lord and worked for him. Then he described being volunteered for a task, being forced to drink a horrifying potion in a dark cave, and being left for dead. But the story didn't end there. Creaker then talked about surviving and coming back again with Regulus. Creaker's croaking voice painted a vivid, horrifying picture of the chilling black water, the potion that drove his young master to madness, and the swarm of inferi that dragged him under as he ordered Creaker to flee with the real locket and destroy it. When the tale was finished, a profound silence filled the kitchen. Sirius sank into a nearby chair, the weight of the revelation crushing him. His brother, the quiet, mummy's boy who had followed the dark path, had died a hero. A martyr. He had defied the most powerful dark wizard in history to do what was right. A fierce, aching pride swelled in Sirius's chest, immediately followed by a wave of soul-crushing guilt. If only they had been closer. If they had been on talking terms, maybe he could have helped. Maybe Regulus would still be alive. Master Regulus was brave, Creaker said quietly, the first words without venom. Braver than any other. Sirius looked at the elf, really looked at him for the first time. This wasn't just the family servant who tormented his childhood. This was the only witness to his brother's finest moment, the keeper of Regulus's last mission. The locket, Sirius said hoarsely. Bring it to me. The elf looked up, suspicion warring with hope in his watery eyes. Creaker could not destroy it. Creaker tried everything. I know, Sirius said gently. But I have something that can help me finish what you and Regulus started. Hope won. Creaker vanished with a pop and reappeared moments later, holding the heavy, ornate locket. Sirius could feel the malevolence radiating from it, whispers scratching at the edges of his mind. He drew the basilisk fang Arthur had given him, and brought it down on the locket with all his might. Clang! The fang skittered off the locket's surface, leaving not even a scratch. Parcel tongue, he muttered, remembering Arthur's warning. Harry needs to open it first. Sirius set the locket carefully aside and met Creaker's anxious gaze. We'll destroy it together. I swear on the black name. Once I can reach Harry safely, we'll complete Regulus's mission. For the first time in either of their memories, Creaker bowed to Sirius Black not from compulsion, but from something that might have been respect. The following days blurred together in dusty research and growing frustration. The Black Library, for all its dark arts collection, proved nearly useless on Horcruxes. Even Magic Most Evil devoted mere paragraphs to the subject, as if the very parchment recoiled from such knowledge. Bloody useless, Sirius growled, slamming shut another worthless tome. Even dark wizards won't document this properly. He needed specific show many Horcruxes existed, where Voldemort might hide them, any pattern to their creation. But the magic was so reviled that practical information simply didn't exist in written form. A week after his death, just as frustration was reaching its peak, a frantic buzzing sound erupted from his pocket. The two-way mirror. Harry. Sirius's heart hammered against his ribs as he pulled it out. He saw his godson's face, streaked with tears, his expression utterly devastated. Sirius. Sirius Black. Please, if you can hear me. Sirius's resolve to wait crumbled. He couldn't let Harry suffer like this for a moment longer. Harry, he whispered into the mirror. His godson's head snapped up. Relief so pure that it pained Sirius more about keeping the secret. Sirius. You're alive. Are you behind the veil? Can you come back? I'll do anything, I'll ask Dumbledore. I'm fine, pup, Sirius cut him off, his voice thick with emotion. I'm alive, and not behind any veil. Listen to me. This isn't the place to talk. Can you get to the Shrieking Shack tonight, alone? Yes. Of course. Good. Tell no one, Harry. Not Ron, not Hermione, not Dumbledore. No one. My survival has to be our secret for now. Act as you have been. I'll explain everything tonight. Harry nodded eagerly, then paused. Sirius? I'm so glad you're alive. I thought I'd lost you too. Never, Sirius said fiercely. You'll never lose me, Harry. I promise. He cut the connection and began preparing. Tonight, he would see his godson. Together, they'd destroy Voldemort's anchor to immortality. Nearly dying had given him clarity. This second chance wouldn't be wasted on old grudges and reckless behavior. He'd become the guardian Harry deserved even if it meant staying dead to the world a little longer. Chapter 105, The Dead Man's Moves Part 2. The Shrieking Shack loomed before Sirius like a monument to his past. Moonlight filtered through boarded windows, casting familiar shadows across rotting floorboards. Every creak, every groan of ancient wood pulled memories from the depths. 4 boys becoming Animagi in secret, Snape's terrified face that almost fatal night, and more recently, Peter's sniveling confession before Harry. This place had witnessed his greatest triumphs and deepest failures. Footsteps on the passage stairs shattered his reverie. A moment later, Harry burst through the entrance, yanking off his invisibility cloak with desperate urgency. They stared at each other for a heartbeat that lasted forever. Then Harry crashed into him, arms wrapping around Sirius like he might disappear if he let go. You're okay, Harry mumbled into his shoulder, voice muffled and thick. You're really okay. I'm here, pup. Sirius's own voice cracked, arms tightening around his godson. I'm here. They stayed like that for long moments, neither willing to break contact first. Finally, Harry pulled back, eyes red but shining with joy. But how? The words tumbled out. I saw you fall through the veil. Bellatrix's curse hit you. Apparently, your friend Arthur Hayes decided I wasn't allowed to die yet. Sirius managed a watery grin. Pulled some kind of magic I've never seen. One second I'm falling, the next I'm in his manor with a very stern house elf refusing to let me leave. Harry's brow furrowed. Arthur? But we're not that close. Why would he? How did he even know? Dobby went to him for help. Dobby. As if summoned by his name, the elf appeared with a crack. Harry Potter calls for Dobby. The elf's tennis ball eyes widened at the sight of them together. Dobby. Harry dropped to his knees, pulling the startled elf into a hug. You asked Arthur to save Sirius. Dobby's ears drooped. Dobby heard Harry Potter and friends running into danger. Dobby knows Wizard Hayes is very strong, so Dobby asked Winky for help. Dobby is sorry for acting without orders. No. Harry interrupted fiercely. Thank you. If you hadn't, Sirius would not be here tonight. You saved him, Dobby. You saved us both. The elf burst into tears of joy, which set off another round of hugging. Sirius watched with a lump in his throat. You've got a loyal friend there, Harry. My house elf tried to get us killed while yours moved heaven and earth to save us. Harry's expression darkened. What happened to Kreaker? Long story, but we've reached an understanding. He'll treat you with respect now. Sirius's smile turned wry. Turns out we both have the same common purpose and bonded over it. That's good, but Harry's face scrunched in confusion. Why are you hiding? Why do you need everyone to think you're dead? Hayes's idea, and a bloody brilliant one. Sirius guided Harry to a dusty bench. Think about it, no one searches for a dead man. I can move freely, investigate things, help you properly instead of being trapped in Grimmauld Place. Harry's face fell. Does that mean I still have to go back to the Dursleys tomorrow? Unfortunately, yes. At Harry's expression, Sirius quickly added, Dumbledore will not allow me to take you away from there. But we have the mirrors now. We can talk every day. And if they give you any trouble, you let me know. A visit from the vicious, still alive mass murderer Sirius Black should set them straight. That brought a small smile to Harry's face, but it was quickly replaced by a shadow of fear. Sirius, do you know about the prophecy? Sirius's expression sobered. I only know the basics. That it involves you and Voldemort. Dumbledore told you the details. Yet. Harry's voice dropped to barely a whisper. It says I have to kill him. Either I murder him or he murders me. No other options. His hands trembled. How am I supposed to fight a Dark Lord? He's got decades of knowledge, an army of followers, and I'm just... Stop. Sirius gripped Harry's shoulders. You're not alone. You have me, your friends, people who would die before letting him touch you. And we're going to stack the deck in your favor, starting tonight. What do you mean? First, we need to discuss your adventures. Hayes mentioned something about a diary in second year? Opening the Chamber of Secrets? Fighting a 1,000-year-old basilisk? Harry flushed. We can talk about that later. No, it's relevant. That diary wasn't just a powerful dark artifact. It contained a piece of Voldemort's soul. Harry stared at him, dumbfounded. A piece of his soul? People can do that. Only the desperate and deranged. It's called a Horcrux, splitting your soul and hiding pieces in objects. As long as even one survives, he can't truly die. Understanding dawned in Harry's eyes. The diary was one. That's why everything was so real, and he said he could return to life using Ginny. Exactly. And unfortunately, he made more than one. You can split your soul many times? And how did you find it? Sirius did not answer the questions. The story of Regulus was still too raw to share. Instead he called out, Creaker. With a pop, the elf appeared, holding the locket with a strange reverence. Harry's eyes widened at the transformation. Gone was the hostile creature from last summer. This Creaker stood straight and radiated quiet dignity. This needs to be opened with Parseltongue before it can be destroyed, Sirius explained, accepting the locket carefully. What do we destroy it with? Should I get a basilisk fang from the chamber? No need. Sirius produced the gleaming fang Arthur had provided. You just need to tell it to open in Parseltongue. Harry stared at the locket, frowning in concentration. Open. The word came out in English. Visualize a snake, Sirius suggested. Harry closed his eyes, and when he spoke again, sibilant hisses filled the air. The locket sprang open with a golden flash. A cold, insidious presence filled the room, whispering temptations into Sirius's mind. But this was a new Sirius, one forged in loss and driven by purpose. Nothing the soul said could faze him. Is that all you've got? He snarled at the writhing smoke. I've lived through worse than your parlor tricks. He drove the basilisk fang down with all his strength. A terrible, human-like scream echoed through the shack, and then there was silence. Creaker let out a choked sob of triumph. Is that all of them? Harry asked, his voice shaking slightly. No. Hayes said there are more than 3 total. We'll find them. I'll find them. Sirius's tone brooked no argument. This is adult work, Harry. Dark magic, dangerous locations, probably lethal protections. You focus on school and staying safe. But I could help. By staying alive and preparing for the final confrontation. Sirius softened his voice. Let me do this for you. Let me be the godfather I should have been all along. Harry nodded reluctantly. What should I tell the others? Nothing for now. A dead man can move in the shadows. Once I've cleared my name properly, we'll throw the biggest party Wizarding Britain has ever seen. The menace returns. What do you think? That finally got a real smile. Brilliant. Good. Now, it's late and you need to be up early for the train. At Harry's protest, Sirius pulled him into another hug. Just 2 more years, pup. Once you're 17, no one can control where you live or what you do. Until then, we have the mirrors and secret meetings. Okay. Harry's acceptance came reluctantly but genuinely. They parted ways, Harry sneaking back to Hogwarts, Sirius returning to Grimmauld Place with grim determination. He had work to do. When Sirius Black decided to be serious, he became a force of nature. His first move was recruiting Phineas Nigellus Black's portrait. The former headmaster proved surprisingly willing to spy on Dumbledore family loyalty transcending death, especially when the request came from the rightful Lord Black. I cannot reveal school matters, Phineas warned haughtily. But the old fool's personal activities, those are fair game. Through Phineas, Sirius learned Dumbledore had been mysteriously absent throughout the previous year, always returning exhausted and troubled. The headmaster was investigating something about Voldemort's past, visiting memories and tracking down old associates. Sirius knew immediately Dumbledore was hunting Horcruxes. But the old man's secretive nature meant he'd never share information freely. With no leads to follow, Sirius focused on preparation. The Department of Mysteries battle had shown him how far he'd fallen from his aura-trained prime. Azkaban had stolen more than Yersid had stolen his edge. He threw himself into training with single-minded focus. Physical conditioning every morning. Dueling practice against conjured opponents. Studying advanced texts he'd ignored in his reckless youth. If he couldn't hunt Horcruxes yet, he'd ensure he was ready when opportunity arose. He told no one of his survival, not even Remus. His oldest friend had abandoned Harry for years, choosing self-pity over responsibility. Even after reappearing, he did not try to help Harry much. He had no excuses now. Their friendship might survive, but Sirius would never trust him with Harry's safety again. Days passed and news of the attack on Amelia Bones reached him through Phineas. Death Eaters and Voldemort himself assaulting the minister, hopeful only to be driven off by an 18-year-old wizard. Arthur Hayes, Sirius murmured, shaking his head in amazement. What are you? Whatever the answer, he was grateful Hayes fought for their side. That night, Dumbledore appeared in Grimmauld Place's kitchen without warning. Hello, Sirius, the headmaster said mildly, as if dropping by for tea. Sirius didn't bother pretending surprise. Your timing's impeccable as always. I have my ways. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled, but concern lurked beneath. I must confess curiosity about your miraculous survival. Sorry, that's between me and my mysterious benefactor. Mr. Hayes, I presume. At Sirius's poker face, Dumbledore sighed. What are your plans? Training. Preparing. I promised Harry I'd survive this war. I intend to keep that promise. And Harry stays where you put him. The words tasted bitter. For now. They danced around topics for an hour, Dumbledore fishing for information about Arthur, Sirius probing about the headmaster's secret mission. Neither gave ground. The Order could use Grimmauld Place as headquarters again, Dumbledore suggested before leaving. No. Sirius's refusal was flat. This is my home now. Find somewhere else for your secrets. A few more days later, Phineas brought disturbing news. Dumbledore had returned from another secret outing grievously injured, his wand hand blackened and withered. Sirius snuck into Hogwarts, watching from a distance as the headmaster moved through corridors. The curse was vicious, dark beyond anything he'd seen. Only one explanation fit: Dumbledore had triggered a Horcrux's defenses. A year, Sirius muttered, recognizing the curse's pattern. Maybe less. The country's most powerful wizard and the wizard Voldemort feared was dying. Time had become their enemy. This also showed Sirius that he could not go Horcrux hunting alone. If traps were so deadly and powerful, he would need help on the hunt. He would need allies. Dumbledore topped the list but proved impossible to work with. That left option 2 Amelia Bones. After letting the dust settle from her election, Sirius sent a formal request for meeting through Kriaker. The new minister, with her dedication to justice, agreed. Their meeting was tense but productive. Sirius laid out everything: Peter's betrayal, the Fidelius switch, his innocence. Amelia listened, questioned, then spoke with Harry through the mirror for confirmation. I'll see what can be done, she promised. Posthumous exoneration might be easier than overturning a conviction. But Sirius, there's more you're not telling me. He kept silent about the Horcruxes. He was not sure if there would be any risk. Too many variables, too many chances for leaks. Voldemort couldn't know they were hunting his anchors. So Sirius waited, trained, and talked with Harry every evening through the mirrors. Their conversations ranged from magical theory to marauder stories, from Quidditch analysis to coping with grief. Slowly, carefully, he became the mentor Harry needed. Then, on an otherwise ordinary Tuesday, Kreaker appeared with a soft pop, his expression one of utter confusion. "Master Sirius," the elf croaked. "There is a visitor at the door." "Who is it?" Sirius asked, annoyed. "It is the Lady Narcissa Malfoy." Chapter 106, The Dead Man's Moves, Part 3. Sirius stared at Kreaker in bewilderment. "Narcissa? Here? Are you certain? He should be a dead man. Why would his cousin, of all people, come calling? How did she know he was still alive?" "Show her in," he said finally, curiosity overcoming caution. Within Grimmauld Place's ancient wards, he was safer than anywhere else in Britain. She could do nothing to him here. Narcissa swept into the drawing room with practiced elegance, though closer inspection revealed shadows under her eyes and tension in her bearing. She showed no surprise at seeing her supposedly dead cousin. "Sissy," Sirius drawled, a smirk playing on his lips. "To what do I owe the displeasure? I thought you'd be celebrating." "I was, for a time," she replied, her voice as crisp as frozen silk. "I thought my dear sister had finally freed you from this miserable life. But recent developments led me to believe you were still, lingering." "Oh? And what developments were those?" "Your will," she stated simply. "It has not been executed. Were you truly dead, the line of succession would have been activated." Sirius barked out a laugh. "Of course. Checking to see if your precious Draco could become the next Lord Black. Unfortunately for you, I plan to live a very long life. A temporary reprieve." Her lips thinned. "Your recklessness is legendary. Sooner or later, you'll manage to get yourself properly killed. Even if I did, your son would never inherit." Sirius's grin turned sharp. "Or did you forget about my godson?" Narcissa's carefully maintained mask cracked slightly. "Potter? But he's a Black, through his great-grandmother Doria. Add to that the fact that he is my chosen heir, and his claim obliterates Draco's. The family magic would never accept your son over him." The disappointment on her face was clear, though she quickly masked it. "It matters little. From what Draco tells me, the Potter boy shares your reckless streak. Who is to say he will outlive this war?" "He'll make it," Sirius said, his voice hardening. "I'll make sure of it. I'm not so certain about your son, however. When is he taking the mark?" "Following in Daddy's footsteps." He leaned forward. "I hear the new minister allows the use of lethal force against Death Eaters. One stray curse on his first mission, what a tragedy that would be." Narcissa went pale. The barb struck a nerve, and for the first time, her polished facade cracked. It also confirmed his suspicions. This wasn't about inheritance, not really. "Why are you here, Sissy?" His tone gentled fractionally. "Not to check my pulse or plan property acquisition." She hesitated, her pride warring with a deeper fear. "I need your help, cousin." Sirius stared at her, then threw his head back and laughed. "Did I hear that correctly? You, Narcissa Malfoy née Black, need the help of a blood traitor? This is priceless. What is it? Want me to help spring Lucius from Azkaban? Sorry, I'd rather watch him rot, just like I did." "No." The word was a desperate gasp. "It is not for Lucius. I want you to save my son." The genuine terror in her voice stopped Sirius. Despite everything their families divide, the bitter rivalry between Harry and Draco was still a Black. And the Blacks, for all their faults, protected their own. The memory of Regulus was still fresh in Sirius's mind. Regulus, who had died trying to make things right. Maybe this was a chance to give someone like his little brother the chance he never had. He exhaled slowly. "I'm listening." "The Dark Lord, he has given Draco a task," she whispered, her voice trembling. "An impossible task. It is a punishment for Lucius's failures. A death sentence." Sirius leaned forward, a grim joke on his lips. "Define impossible. What's he supposed to do, kill Dumbledore?" The fact that she didn't laugh, that she simply stared at him with wide, terrified eyes, was all the answer he needed. The humor vanished from his face. "Merlin's beard. He actually wants your son to kill Dumbledore? What did Lucius do to warrant that level of revenge? He won't say. Only that his mistake cost the Dark Lord dearly. Narcissa's composure finally cracked, her voice trembling. Now Draco must pay the price. He'll die trying, or the Dark Lord will kill him for failing. She looked at Sirius, desperation naked in her eyes. Please. Is there a way to get him out? To hide him somewhere anywhere far away? Sirius's expression hardened. What's your plan if I refuse? He asked, testing her resolve. I've spoken with Severus, she admitted, reluctantly. His first instinct was Furious Nivellus, the greasy traitor, the Death Eater. But he didn't explode. Instead, something colder and sharper clicked inside him. The unused gears of his mind began to turn with frightening speed. Snape wasn't good, not in any way Sirius would call it, but he did hate Voldemort. That much, Sirius was sure of. He thought of Dumbledore's withered hand, the dark curse he couldn't stop. Dumbledore is dying and he knows it. A plan unfolded in Sirius's mind, grim and brilliant. The old man would use his death like a chess master, sacrificing himself to save Draco's soul, to anchor Snape deeper into Voldemort's inner circle. The pieces clicked together with horrifying clarity. With Snivellus involved, your problem is already solved, Sirius said dismissively. Dumbledore trusts him. Just have Snape slip him some poison, and the mission is complete. No. Narcissa shook her head. The Dark Lord was clear. Draco must be the one to kill Dumbledore. Sirius studied her. So what do you want from me? Take him away, she whispered. Hide him abroad. Somewhere the Dark Lord can't find him. Sirius's voice dropped low. Has he taken the mark? She hesitated. Then, almost inaudibly, yes. Then there's nothing I can do, he said flatly. Voldemort can track all his followers through the mark. There's no hiding from him. Narcissa crumpled, as if the last thread of hope had been snipped away. But Sirius wasn't finished. There is another way, he said, voice now cold and deliberate. You can help me kill Voldemort. Then your son will be safe. Her eyes widened. That's impossible. The Dark Lord is undefeatable. Is he? Sirius's smile was predatory. I heard he and his army fled from a single 18-year-old recently. Doesn't sound very strong to me. I heard about him from Bella, she conceded. That boy, you know him. He's the one who saved my life, Sirius admitted. But he won't solve our problems for us. He has no stake in our world. Then what can we do? Narcissa asked, desperate. Before we continue, I need a vow, Sirius stated. A secrecy vow. What I am about to tell you cannot leave this room. Desperation overrode caution. She drew her wand, speaking the binding words without hesitation. Good. No one to know what Lucius's great failure was. She nodded tightly. Remember any diary Voldemort gave him? Old, black leather. Narcissa's eyes widened. Yes. Lucius was told to guard it with his life. That diary was a Horcrux. The word struck her like a physical blow. He made those abominations? That's how he claims immortality. Among other things. Your brilliant husband, for reasons I still don't understand, used it to open the Chamber of Secrets. Nearly got several students killed, including your son. Sirius's smile held no humor. My godson destroyed it. 12 years old, basilisk venom, straight through Voldemort's soul fragment. Draco's stories were true. She sounded faint. The petrifications, the Chambéry thought they were his usual exaggerations. Every word. Harry killed a 1,000-year-old basilisk with a sword. What's Draco's greatest achievement? Perfect scores in potions. Her silence spoke volumes. I suppose that's what Voldemort's so angry about, Sirius continued. Lucius's blunder led to the destruction of a piece of his soul. He's got every reason to be furious. So, Narcissa said slowly, her voice regaining strength, what help do you need from me? The Horcrux is destroyed, isn't it? That makes him mortal now, right? Sirius shook his head. No. That monster didn't stop at one. He made several. Her breath caught. What kind of monster have Lucius and I sworn allegiance to? How many? Do you have any leads on where the others are? At least 3, Sirius said. Regulus destroyed one before he was killed. Her eyes widened. Is that why he disappeared? Sirius nodded, jaw tight. Yes. And if I piece everything together, it makes sense that another Horcrux might be with Bellatrix. You had one. Regulus had one. Bella's the closest to Voldemort. She would have been a natural choice. And you want me to get it from her? Narcissa asked slowly. Yes, Sirius said. Can you find out if she has it? And if so, can you get it to me? Narcissa was silent for a moment. Then, with unexpected calm, she said, if you had asked me this a few weeks ago, I'd have told you it was impossible. But things have changed. Sirius raised an eyebrow. Ever since the Dark Lord lost to that Muggle-born, she continued, Bella hasn't been the same. She's lost faith. She doesn't worship him blindly anymore. I can try asking her about the Horcrux. Even in our darkest studies, we were taught that Horcruxes were abominations. She may hate them as much as we do. Sirius nodded. Good. If we destroy that one, we'll be down to 3. Maybe 2. Dumbledore has likely destroyed another. I think Voldemort made 6, to split his soul 7 ways. One of them, I'm certain, is his snake. Narcissa exhaled. So when they're all gone, the Dark Lord will be mortal. Weak enough to be killed by the Chosen One. Sirius frowned. Chosen One. That's what they call your godson, she said, voice laced with irony. Some prophecy about him was leaked. Sirius gave a dry chuckle. Figures. But I don't care. It was always obvious Harry would be the one to finish it. You help me get that Horcrux, and I'll make sure you and your family are protected when this is over. Narcissa narrowed her eyes. You have that kind of influence now? Have you taken the Black Lordship? Sirius blinked. What? I can do that. You didn't know? She asked, surprised. After Sirius Black died, I checked. You're the rightful heir. But I'm a fugitive. Dead, even, according to some records. You were never convicted. Never given a trial, she pointed out. By law, you're still a free man. Try wearing the ring. I believe it's still in Gringotts. Sirius's expression brightened. That's, actually great news. Thanks, Sissa. If I can claim the lordship, clearing my name just got a whole lot easier. That manipulative old man should have known this too. He paused, remembering the curse slowly killing the headmaster. Serves him right, really. Narcissa tilted her head. What do you mean? I won't spoil the surprise, Sirius said cryptically. Let's just saw your son's task? It's not as hard as it seems. Snivellis will make sure he succeeds. No need to worry. You could just tell me what's going on, she said, clearly annoyed. How can you be so sure? Let's just say Dumbledore has his own plans. He walked her to the door. Get me the Horcrux, Narcissa. She left with a new, dangerous mission. And Sirius, for the first time in over a decade, prepared for a visit to Gringotts, not as a fugitive, but as a lord ready to claim his birthright. Chapter 107, The Dead Man's Moves, Part 4. Sirius Black, dressed in the finest robes Kreaker could procure, strode into Gringotts with the confidence of a king returning to his castle. The goblins didn't so much as blink. In record time, he was led to the goblin in charge of the Black Vaults. After a brief but thorough verification process, an obsidian box was placed before him. Inside lay the lordship ring of the House of Black. Sirius hesitated only a moment before slipping it onto his finger. The ancient magic of his house flared to life, accepting him without hesitation. In that instant, he became more than Sirius Black. He became the Black, the rightful lord of a noble and most ancient house. The ring granted him access to knowledge he never knew existed, intricate details of the family's vast financial holdings, a network of properties scattered across the globe, and a deep, instinctual understanding of the ancient wards protecting them. Sirius's first act as Lord Black was to schedule a meeting with Amelia Bones. Amelia arrived at Grimmauld Place looking stunned. Lord Black, she greeted him, her eyes wide as she took in the ring on his finger. Well, that changes everything. Yes, it does, Sirius agreed, gesturing to an elegant chair. Starting with a long overdue trial. 1 week later, Courtroom 10 erupted in chaos. Sirius Black is dead. Cornelius Fudge shrieked from the visitors' gallery, his face purple with indignation. Many people witnessed his fall through the veil. Clearly not dead enough, Sirius drawled from the defendant's chair, waggling his fingers cheerfully. Though I appreciate the concern, Cornelius. Order. Amelia's voice cracked like thunder. Mr. Fudge, you are no longer the minister. Sit down or be removed. The evidence was overwhelming. Pensieve memories from Harry Potter. Veritaserum testimony about the secret keeper switch. The lack of trial and conviction before incarceration in Azkaban was the nail in the coffin. It seems, Amelia announced after barely an hour's deliberation, that the ministry owes Lord Black an unprecedented apology. All charges are dismissed. Your wrongful imprisonment will be compensated at standard rates. Triple rates, Sirius interrupted smoothly. For the aggravated circumstances. Unless the ministry would prefer I pursue criminal charges against those responsible for denying me a trial. Amelia's lips twitched. Triple rates approved. The reaction was explosive. The Daily Prophet ran a frantic headline, Sirius Black, alive and innocent. The wizarding world erupted in a firestorm of shock, outrage, and recrimination. Sirius savored every moment of it, enjoying the stunned looks on the faces of old enemies and the shuffling apologies from those who had thought him guilty. But one battle remained. Harry stays with his relatives, Dumbledore said firmly. They stood in the Chief Warlock's office, tension crackling between them. Like hell he does. Sirius's newfound control cracked. I'm his legal guardian. The blood wards are irrelevant, Sirius cut in. My home has wards older and stronger than any blood wards. It's safer. My boy, you don't understand the danger. Don't. The word came out low and dangerous. Don't my boy me, Albus. Not after leaving me to rot while you knew KNEW I was innocent. Dumbledore's twinkle dimmed. I had no proof. You had the political power to demand Veritaserum. To insist on a trial. Sirius stood, magic crackling around him. But a wrongfully imprisoned guardian couldn't complicate your plans for Harry, could he? They stared at each other across centuries of manipulation and broken trust. One more week, Dumbledore finally said. To recharge the protections. Then he may stay with you. No. I'm not letting him spend another night in that place. Dumbledore's voice turned sharp. Then I'll challenge your fitness as a guardian. The Wizengamot would find prolonged Dementor exposure concerning. As would your years as a fugitive. Such instability in a guardian. Sirius's jaw clenched, then he exhaled slowly. 1 week. But after that, Harry's with me. Dumbledore nodded. And next summer. Sirius's grin was wolfish. We will talk about that later, old man. Sirius hid his savage satisfaction. By next summer, Dumbledore would be beyond making demands about anything. Harry arrived at Grimmauld Place a week later, following an impromptu detour with Dumbledore to convince Horace Slughorn to accept the position of Potions Master at Hogwarts. This is brilliant. Harry spun in circles, taking in the renovated entrance hall. Gone were the dark artifacts and screaming portraits. Light, air, and warmth had replaced the tomb-like atmosphere. You've got your own room this time, Sirius said proudly. Not the one you shared with Ron. And I might have gone a little mad with Quidditch posters. They couldn't leave the House of Voldemort's forces still hunted Harry, but within Grimmauld Place's walls, they were free. Mornings for training, afternoons for flying in the expanded basement, evenings for stories and strategy. The Black Wards had ways around the trace detection. Show me that wand movement again, Harry said, focused intensely on the Protego variation Sirius was teaching. Flick, not swish. The shield needs to deflect, not just block. Sirius adjusted Harry's grip. Better. Now. Harry's shield snapped into existence, silvery and solid. Brilliant. Sirius ruffled his godson's hair. You're learning faster than I did. I have a better teacher, Harry replied, then ducked the playful hex Sirius sent his way. The summer flew by. For the first time since his parents' death, Harry experienced what having a real family felt like. No chores, no cupboards, no starvation, just love, laughter, and learning. When September arrived, neither wanted it to end. Christmas. Sirius promised at King's Cross, holding Harry tight. I'll make Dumbledore agree. You'll come home for Christmas. Home. Harry tested the word, smiling. Yet. Home. While Harry returned to Hogwarts, Narcissa Malfoy began her own desperate gambit. Bella. She kept her voice carefully casual over afternoon tea. I heard the Dark Lord was displeased about Lucius losing something precious. Bellatrix's eyes sharpened like a hawk spotting prey. Oh? You know about that? She leaned forward. I'm surprised Lucius still breathes. The Dark Lord treasures those items above all else. Do you know what it was? You shouldn't ask such questions. Bellatrix's voice dropped dangerously. Your family can't afford more mistakes. But I want to make amends. Narcissa let desperation creep in. Not difficult, given the circumstances. Could I acquire a replacement? Surely if the Dark Lord trusted Lucius with such an item, he must have trusted you with something similar. Of course. Bellatrix preened. If Lucy could be trusted, then his most faithful carries something far more precious. Got you, Narcissa thought. Though there's no replacing them. Bellatrix waved dismissively. Each is unique. Irreplaceable. Narcissa let her mask slip for just a moment, showing real fear. Then there's no saving Draco. Don't worry, dear sister. Bellatrix's smile was all teeth. I'll help little Draco complete his task. The Dark Lord's mercy is extensive. They both knew she was lying. Sirius met Narcissa in the shadowed hush of a misty forest clearing. The ground was damp beneath their feet, and the trees loomed tall and silent, as if holding their breath. After Harry had moved in, Sirius had torn down the compromised Fidelius's charm on Grimmauld Place and raised a new one, stronger, tighter, and known only to him and Harry. No one else would ever hold the secret again. Well? He asked without preamble. She has it. Definitely. Narcissa's voice carried defeat. She knows exactly what it is, and she's proud of carrying it. There's no way to convince her. She sees it as an honor, not an abomination. Sirius cursed under his breath. At least we confirmed its existence. I'll find another way to. How touching. Both spun toward the mocking voice. Bellatrix Lestrange stepped from behind an ancient oak, wand already drawn, eyes glittering with malice. Bella. Narcissa's voice cracked. How? Following a traitor. Bellatrix's wand never wavered. Did you really think I wouldn't notice your clumsy questions? Your sudden interest in the Dark Lord's possessions. She's trying to save her son. Sirius moved slowly, hand near his wand. Something you'd understand if you weren't completely insane. Save him. Bellatrix laughed, high and cold. From the honor of serving the greatest wizard who ever lived. Greatest wizard? Sirius snorted. The same great wizard who fled from an 18-year-old Muggleborn? Tail between his legs like a whipped dog. Blasphemy! Bellatrix shrieked, and her wand was in her hand. Crucio! Sirius was already rolling. The unforgivable scorched earth where he'd stood, leaving smoking furrows. Conf Ringo. Bellatrix shielded, the explosion rattling nearby trees. The Dark Lord is eternal. He will crush all who oppose him. Eternal. Sirius laughed harshly, dodging a killing curse. Is that what he tells you while hiding behind his snake? Their duel erupted in earnest. This was not a duel but war. Both combatants moved with lethal intent, decades of training and hatred given violent form. Sectum sempra. Prodigo. Reducto. Trees shattered. Earth exploded. The very air crackled with unleashed magic. Narcissa pressed herself against a boulder, paralyzed. Her sister and cousin danced with death, and she could only watch. Bellatrix had thought she could handle Sirius after all, she'd bested him once in the Department of Mysteries. But Sirius was no longer the man she'd flung through the veil. He was sharper now. More focused. More dangerous. Help me, sissy. Bellatrix screamed as one of Sirius's curses seared her arm. Or I will tell the Dark Lord everything. Your precious dragon will suffer a fate worse than death. Narcissa drew her wand with shaking hands. Don't be stupid. Sirius kept his eyes on Bellatrix. She tells Voldemort you know about Horcruxes. You and Draco die tonight. He's lying. Bellatrix snarled. I've protected you your whole life, sissy. You are my sister. The same sister who just threatened my son. But Narcissa still turned her wand with shaking hands towards Sirius. I can't let you kill her, Sirius. Touching. Sirius sighed. Fine. 2 against 1. Just like a Black family reunion. The battle resumed with Narcissa's reluctant addition. But her heart wasn't an Idaviri spell came a beat too slow, every shield a fraction too weak. She was fighting to prevent death, not cause it. Even together, they couldn't overcome Sirius's momentum. He'd found his rhythm now, magic flowing like water, each movement perfect economy. And Bellatrix knew they could not win. Sissy, Bellatrix hissed during a brief lull. When I move, apparate away. Quickly. But. Now. Impedimenta. The spell forced Sirius to dodge. In that instant, Narcissa twisted and vanished with a crack. Just us now. Sirius advanced. How it should be. But Bellatrix dissolved into a stream of black smoke, twisting through the trees and vanishing into the night sky. Voldemort's gift to his most faithful. No. Sirius fired curse after curse at the retreating cloud. Spells passed through harmlessly as Bellatrix soared above the treeline. Her laughter echoed as she soared above the trees. Until next time, cousin. And next time, I'll make sure you stay dead. Then she was gone, leaving Sirius alone in the devastated clearing. A cold dread settled in his stomach. The plan had failed spectacularly. Bellatrix knew everything. Would she go to Voldemort? Would the other Horcruxes be moved, hidden away forever? At Malfoy Manor, Narcissa knelt on cold marble as Bellatrix paced around her like a stalking predator. Stupid, stupid girl. Bellatrix's wand jabbed accusingly. Consorting with blood traitors. Plotting against the Dark Lord. I should kill you myself. I only wanted to save Draco. Silence. The curse that followed was mild by Bellatrix's standards, but Narcissa still gasped in pain. Your son chose his path. As did you. Long minutes passed in tense silence. Finally, Narcissa found her courage. What happens now? She whispered. Will you tell him? Bellatrix stopped pacing, her expression turning cunning. Nothing happens, she said, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across her face. We say nothing. If the Dark Lord learns we know his secret, we are both dead. The blood traitor thinks I will run to our Lord, but he is the fool. Then. This stays between us. Bellatrix's wand pressed against Narcissa's throat. But I'll be watching you, sister. One more step out of line, and I'll feed you to Nagini myself. I understand. Good. Bellatrix stepped back. The item will be moved somewhere even Black can't reach. The Dark Lord's immortality remains secure. She left without another word, and Narcissa remained kneeling, shaken, silent, and very much afraid for the future. Chapter 108, The Dead Man's Moves, Part 5. Sirius returned to Grimmauld Place, the shadows of the forest still clinging to his cloak. The attempt to retrieve the Horcrux had failed worse, it had backfired spectacularly. Stupid, stupid, stupid. He punched the wall, the impact jarring his knuckles. Master is upset. Kreaker appeared with a pop, looking almost concerned. I'm an idiot, Kreaker, Sirius slumped against the wall. A complete, utter fool. The house elf tilted his head. Master speaks truth for once. Despite everything, Sirius barked a laugh. Since when did you develop a sense of humor? Kreaker learns from Master, the elf replied deadpan. Sirius smiled at the reply but the smile vanished as soon as it came. I should have known. He pushed off the wall, beginning to pace. Bellatrix would never betray Voldemort. Not after one defeat. Not after 100. The mistake was so obvious in hindsight. He'd let hope override logic, jumped at Narcissa's offer without thinking it through. Some strategist he was turning out to be. The Gryffindor in him still made reckless decisions, even now. They were back to square one. He didn't even know what the Horcrux had been, only that it was now hidden again, possibly more securely than ever. But Sirius Black was not the man he once was. He wouldn't lock himself away in self-pity. If hunting Horcruxes was a dead end, then he'd fight where he could make a difference. What does Master need? Kreaker asked. The library, Sirius said suddenly. Every book on combat magic. Dark, light, grey, I don't care. If it makes me stronger, I want to read it. Kreaker's eyes gleamed. The Black Library has many such books. Kreaker will gather them. Good. Sirius's jaw set. If I can't destroy Horcruxes, I'll destroy Death Eaters. Let Voldemort live forever with no one left to serve him. And if that failed? He could always reach out to Arthur Hayes. Their brief meeting had told Sirius enough. Arthur was powerful, pragmatic, and had no stake in Voldemort's war. With the right incentive, Arthur might just step in. So Sirius trained. And he read. He dove into the tomes of the Black Library, devouring spells and rituals, disregarding their moral alignment. Between training sessions, Sirius also delved into the powers his lordship afforded him. As Lord Black, his powers extended far beyond what he'd ever realized. Land holdings, ancestral laws, political influence. The pure-blood system was built to serve families like his. Now he understood why the ministry clung so tightly to tradition, and why the purebloods resisted change. They were hoarding power, even as squib births increased and magical blood thinned. He closed one particularly old tome with a grim smile. They'd rather watch the world burn than give this up. Fine. He would use that same system against them. Armed with this new understanding, Sirius began to move. He began reclaiming every asset tied to the House of Black. Contracts with known Death Eater families were terminated. Loans were recalled. Properties were seized. He made it clear, support Voldemort, and the Black Fortune would no longer shelter you. And when he walked into the Wizengamot chambers, dressed in Lord Black's regalia and smiling like a wolf among sheep, the message was unmistakable. Sirius threw his support behind Amelia Bones. He helped push through wartime legislation that empowered Aurors, authorized lethal force in raids, and removed red tape that protected the pure-blood elite. Death Eater raids became bloodier and shorter. When they realized they were dying instead of escaping, the attacks stopped. Voldemort was forced to pause, regroup, and rethink. Harry, meanwhile, had begun his 6th year with something new, hope. He still had nightmares. The prophecy still hung over him. But he wasn't alone anymore. Sirius spoke with him every day, encouraged him to train, to prepare, and most importantly, to live. People only know the boy who lived, Sirius had told him. They don't know Harry. That's why they turn on you so easily. You need more than 2 friends, pup. So Harry did just that. He started spending time with students from other houses. To his surprise, they welcomed him. Some even apologized for believing the worst of him in earlier years. He forgave them. He was just happy to start fresh. He grew close with Neville and Luna, reconnected with old members like Susan Bones and Hannah Abbott. For the first time, Hogwarts felt like an actual school. However, not everything was going well this year. Hermione grew irritated with him upstaging her in potions, thanks to the Half-Blood Prince's book. Her disapproval was loud and constant. Sirius had laughed when Harry mentioned it. As long as you don't cast any spell you don't understand, I don't care whose notes they are. Learn from them. Hermione will come around. Ron, meanwhile, was distracted with Lavender Brown. So Harry spent more time with his new Sir Clean found happiness in it. The prophecy no longer felt like a death sentence. It was a challenge. And he had support now. The only dark cloud on the horizon was Draco Malfoy. Harry knew he was up to something. But Sirius had advised him to let it go. Dumbledore's watching him, Sirius had said. Focus on your own training. Months bled into one another. Draco Malfoy, driven by terror, grew more desperate. His mission to kill Dumbledore was still incomplete. The cursed necklace had failed. The poisoned mead had failed. He had only one option left, to bring Death Eaters into the castle. But Aurors, under Sirius's guidance, had fortified every known secret passage. There was only one last hope left. Draco remembered a strange tale from last year. An upper-year Slytherin who had stumbled across a magical tunnel after pacing a blank stretch of wall on the 7th floor. The tunnel had supposedly exited in the Forbidden Forest. He had emerged from a tree, dazed and alone. Most had laughed it off. But Draco remembered it clearly and clung to it as his last hope. He searched for months. Pacing the corridors in the 7th floor of the castle, looking for the magic wall. Eventually, he discovered the right wall and the right room, the room of requirement. The come and go room. A place that transformed itself based on what you truly needed. But simply wishing for a tunnel didn't work. It took time, trial, and error. He had to be clever with his phrasing. He learned the room's limits and its secrets. The whole mission took its time. It was only by June that he succeeded. He found the tunnel. It led to a hollow tree in the forest, outside the powerful Hogwarts wards. He sent word to Bellatrix. She would come and help him with the other Death Eaters on the last day of the month. Harry's year, meanwhile, had been a triumph. He led Gryffindor to win the Quidditch Cup. He stood tall in Slughorn's club and had even managed to retrieve the memory Dumbledore needed, confirming that Voldemort had intended to create 7 Horcruxes. Sirius was thrilled when he learned. "It's madness," he said, "but knowing the number gives us a real goal." Even Harry's personal life was shifting. His bond with Susan had quietly deepened. Sirius teased him endlessly. "Potters and redheads, pup. It's in the blood." Now, on the 30th of June, Harry stood with Dumbledore at the base of the astronomy tower, ready to leave the school on a dangerous Horcrux hunt. Sirius had argued to go with them. Dumbledore had refused. Sirius didn't like it, but no one won an argument with Albus Dumbledore. And the headmaster had kept the mission's location to himself. Had he shared it, Sirius could have told him the Horcrux might already be dealt with. But Dumbledore's secrets remained his own. So Sirius turned his focus to the castle. A week ago, Harry had contacted him through the mirror, his voice tense. "I saw Malfoy celebrating near the Room of Requirement. He looked different. Like something had worked out. I think he's done whatever he was trying to do." That had been all Sirius needed to hear. From that moment on, he quietly sprang into action. Over the following days, he coordinated with Amelia Bones and Rufus Scrimgeour. Security at Hogwarts was silently tripled. Trusted aurors were placed on discreet alert across the castle, especially near hidden passageways. "Dumbledore and Potter will be leaving the castle," he had told them. "When they do, expect the worst. The Death Eaters will strike that night." He didn't care that there was no hard evidence. He trusted Harry's instincts. He always had. The pattern was too familiar. Every year, danger found Harry. Every year, it came from the Dada professor. And this year had been quiet. Too quiet. Tonight, as he ended his final mirror call with Harry before the boy left with Dumbledore, Sirius Black rose. "Let them come." Sirius Black was waiting. Chapter 109, Walking into a Trap. The Forbidden Forest pressed in around Draco Malfoy like a living thing, branches reaching with skeletal fingers through the gloom. Every snap of a twig made him flinch. Every rustle could be an auror. Or worse. He checked his pocket watch for the 10th time. 9:30. They were late. "Please come," he thought desperately. "Please." Crack. 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 The sound of apparition split the night like thunder. Draco's heart leaped, then plummeted as shapes emerged from the darkness. No Aunt Bella. Instead, Fenrir Greyback's yellow eyes gleamed with predatory hunger. The Caro siblings flanked him, wands already drawn. Behind them stood Thorfinn Roll, massive and brutal, with Corbon Yaxley's aristocratic sneer visible even in shadow. 5 more Death Eaters Draco didn't recognize completed the group. "Where's my aunt?" he asked, trying to keep the edge of panic from his voice. Alecto Carol laughed, an ugly sound. "The Dark Lord forbade it. Said this was your mission, little dragon. Not time for Bellatrix to hold your hand. He has other plans that require her special talents." Amicus added with a nasty grin. Draco's stomach twisted. Without Bellatrix, without her protection and skill. But 10 Death Eaters still stood before him. It had to be enough. It had to. "Follow me." His voice came out steadier than he felt. "Through here." He led them to the hollow tree, its trunk split wide. One by one, they squeezed through the narrow, earthy tunnel beneath the grounds. The passage was suffocatingly dark, and behind him, Greyback's wheezing breath sounded more beast than man. Eventually, they emerged into the Room of Requirement. It was empty save for the exit, a plain wooden door leading into the castle. The Death Eaters looked around, their wands held high, eager for action after months of forced inactivity. The Death Eaters looked around, wands high, excitement barely contained. "Let's move, Draco," Alecto sneered. "I can't wait to wreak some havoc." "No plan?" Draco asked uncertainly. "Shouldn't we? Plans are for cowards." Roll cracked his knuckles. "We go straight for Dumbledore. Anyone gets in the way, they die. The Ministry's had us hiding like rats these past few months," Yaxley added, his cultured voice at odds with the violence in his eyes. "Time to unleash hell." Draco wanted to protest. This wasn't strategy, it was suicide. But the bloodlust in their eyes killed any argument. He moved to the door, hand trembling on the handle. Ready. Greyback's grin showed too many teeth. Born ready, boy. Draco opened the door. The Death Eaters, desperate for blood and mayhem, charged ahead. They had no idea they were walking into a trap. Outside, near the tapestry of Barnabas the Barmy, Sirius Black waited in perfect stillness. The room of requirement was a marvel he still couldn't believe the marauders had missed. 10 elite aurors surrounded him, cloaked and disillusioned, wands at the ready. To his right stood Alastair Moody, magical eye spinning constantly. Constant vigilance, Moody had growled when positioning the aurors. No fidgeting. No complaints. We wait until hell freezes or Death Eaters show. Whichever comes first. You nervous, Black? He muttered now, not looking away from the wall. Just ready, Sirius murmured back. They'll come. Course they will. Moody's scarred face twisted into what might have been a grin. Potter's boy has instincts like his father. When he smells trouble, there's trouble. Any second now, Sirius agreed. Moody's magical eye suddenly snapped forward. The wall's changing. Wands up. A door materialized in the stone. Every wand snapped to attention. The first figure emerged, Electo Caro, her pig-like face twisted in anticipation of violence. For one crystalline moment, both sides froze. Death Eaters seeing aurors. Aurors surprised by the fact that the Death Eaters had really invaded. Then Moody's voice shattered the silence like a war drum. Now. The air exploded with light. Stupefy. 10 voices roared in unison. Electo dropped like a stone. Behind her, Amicus tried to raise a shield, but 3 stunners caught him simultaneously. He crumpled. More Death Eaters poured out, running into a wall of red light. They fell one after another, Yaxley managing half a curse before going down, Roll's massive frame needing 4 stunners to stop. Then Fenrir Greyback burst through. The stunners hit him and nothing. His werewolf-enhanced body shrugged them off like raindrops. With an inhuman snarl, he charged the nearest auror. Lethal force. Moody's roar could have woken the dead. Take the beast down. The kid gloves came off. Diffindo. 5 cutting curses sliced through the air. Reducto. Moody's own curse was perfectly aimed. Greyback made it 3 steps. What hit the ground no longer resembled anything human. The remaining Death Eaters, seeing their most feared member reduced to chunks, tried to retreat. But more aurors had moved to block the door. It was over in seconds. 10 Death Eaters down. 0 auror casualties. Kingsley, Proudfoot, check inside. Moody barked. Rest of you, wands on these scum. Anyone so much as twitches, stun them again. The aurors entered cautiously, wands sweeping the room. A moment later, they emerged shaking their heads. Empty, Moody. Moody's magical eye whirled in its socket, scanning through the wall itself, but found nothing. Sirius frowned. Where was Draco? He'd been certain the boy was involved, but maybe that was for the best. Whatever else Draco was, he was still just a child. Azkaban would destroy what little remained of him. Right then, Moody stumped over to what remained of Greyback. Savage, get an evidence bag. What's left of this monster goes to the Ministry. Rest get Shacklist's special ones. Don't want any of these Death Eaters pulling vanishing acts. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. The Order of the Phoenix arrived in force. Bill Weasley, Tonks, Lupin, and half the Hogwarts staff. Alastair? Padfoot. Lupin's eyes went wide. What happened? Moody's grin was terrifying. Death Eater raid. We were waiting. He kicked Yaxley's unconscious form. Walked right into it, the idiots. How did you know? McGonagall demanded. Harry saw suspicious activity, Sirius explained. I trusted his instincts. And I trusted Black's paranoia, Moody added. Paid off, didn't it? The tension bled out of the group. Tonks actually laughed. Brilliant. 10 Death Eaters in one go. The troubles handled, Moody growled. Now to find out what they were planning. Sirius knew but kept his silence. Some secrets were worth keeping. They began moving the prisoners toward the nearest working flue, the aurors maintaining combat readiness even with their enemies unconscious. After both groups had vanished down the corridor, Severus Snape materialized from the shadows and slipped into the still open room of requirement with practiced silence. You can reveal yourself now. His voice cut through the air like a blade. A moment later, Draco Malfoy shimmered into visibility in the center of the room, trembling like a leaf in a storm. The boy looked destroyed. His grand plan, months in the making, had shattered in mere seconds. They're gone. Draco's voice cracked like breaking glass. My mission. I've failed. How did they know? Black. Snape's tone could have frozen flame itself. Potter saw you were up to something and told him. Then he somehow convinced the minister to act. I'm dead. Draco's knees buckled. When term ends, when I go home, the Dark Lord will. You still have tonight. Snape hauled him roughly to his feet. And you have me. Draco stared up at him with desperate hope. You. Did you think you were the only one whose life hung in the balance? Snape's obsidian eyes glittered dangerously. If you fail, I die too. The unbreakable vow burned against his arm, the secret he'd never shared with the boy. But how? Draco's voice was small. How can we possibly? Just follow me. The Aurors and Order will be occupied with their prisoners for some time. Draco hesitated, then followed. It should have always been this way, Snape continued, sweeping toward the door. Your pride cost 10 Death Eaters their freedom. Perhaps their lives. But we still have a window. Follow me. Quickly. Where are we going? Snape didn't look back. To the astronomy tower. Where it all ends. Chapter 110, The Fall of the Light. The night air in Hogsmeade bit through their soaked robes as Harry and Dumbledore materialized with a soft pop. Water dripped from their clothes, each drop carrying memories of skeletal hands and poisoned desperation. Harry's teeth chattered uncontrollably from cold or lingering terror, he couldn't tell. For one horrible moment, shadows between shops morphed into Inferi in his mind, their dead fingers reaching. He blinked hard. Nothing moved. The village slept peacefully, unaware of the horror they'd escaped. Professor. Harry whispered hoarsely. Are you all right? I've been better, Dumbledore said weakly, though a flicker of amusement played at the corners of his mouth. That potion was no health drink. Despite everything, Harry felt urgency burning through exhaustion. Sir, I know this isn't the time, but the Horcrux. Can I see it? With effort, Dumbledore reached into his soaked robes and withdrew the locket. Here it is. I have bad news, Professor. Harry's heart sank even as he spoke. This Horcrux is a fake. The whole thing, it was for nothing. Shock rippled across Dumbledore's face. He snatched the locket back, examining it with desperate eyes. At once, he knew. This was not the Slytherin's locket he had sought. With fumbling fingers, he pried it open. A folded parchment fell out. The note was brief, devastating. To the Dark Lord. I know I will be dead long before you read this, but I want you to know that it was I who discovered your secret. I have stolen the real Horcrux and intend to destroy it as soon as I can. I face death in the hope that when you meet your match, you will be mortal once more. R.A.B. R.A.B. Dumbledore's frown deepened. I don't. Regulus Sirius Black. Harry's voice went flat as stone. Sirius's brother. The meaning sank in like a stone. Sirius destroyed the real Horcrux last year, Harry continued. With my help. Regulus stole it first, probably died getting it. Sirius found it at Grimmauld Place, and we destroyed it with basilisk venom. In the silence that followed, Harry could hear the universe laughing at them. We risked everything, Harry said bitterly. Nearly died. For nothing. Dumbledore closed his eyes. I should have shared more, spoken to Sirius. But you never do. Bitterness leaked through Harry's exhaustion. Your secrets, Professor. Always your precious secrets. Before Dumbledore could answer, a silver cat patroness shimmered into existence. McGonagall's voice rang out. Headmaster. Death Eater attack at the castle. Captured by Aurors. No casualties, but return immediately. All weariness vanished from Dumbledore's face. Harry, the brooms. Quickly. They summoned their brooms and launched into darkness. Wind tore at their wet robes, turning the flight into frozen misery. The flight back to Hogwarts felt like an eternity. They landed on the astronomy tower, Dumbledore stumbling slightly. There's no need to rush, Professor, Harry said. I warned Sirius. Looks like he managed to stop the Death Eaters. Well done, Harry, Dumbledore said faintly, but with pride. Now please fetch Severus. I need to hear the full story. Wear your cloak just in case. Harry did so and hurried toward the spiral staircase door. His fingers had barely brushed metal when footsteps pounded up the spiral stairs too fast, too desperate. He whirled toward Dumbledore, who made a sharp gesture, retreat. Harry backed away, drawing his wand. The door burst open. Expelliarmus! Shouted a voice. Harry froze, body rigid, breath locked in his lungs as he fell backward against the wall. His limbs refused to move. But Harry's paralysis came not from Draco's spell that had been aimed at Dumbledore but from the headmaster's wandless magic. Frozen like a statue, Harry could only watch as Dumbledore's wand arced through the air, disappearing over the ramparts. The fraction of a second Dumbledore had spent protecting Harry had cost him his only defense. Yet the old wizard showed no fear. He stood against the battlements with the same calm he'd display over tea, addressing his disarmer with gentle courtesy. "Good evening, Draco." Malfoy stepped fully into view, eyes darting around the tower. His gaze caught on the second broom. "Who else is here?" "A question I might ask you," Dumbledore replied. "Your allies have been captured. But how did you get them in the room of requirement?" Terror and pride warred in Draco's voice. "It gave me what I needed." Dumbledore sighed. "A flaw in Hogwarts' defenses I didn't think would be exploited so easily. I'll need to fix that soon." What he didn't say, he had deliberately left the passage open. A hidden escape route embedded into the castle's design by the founders, accessible only to the headmaster, and opened last month for Draco to use. "You won't have the chance," Draco said, lifting his wand. "I'm going to kill you." "My dear boy, let's not pretend. If you were going to kill me, you would have done so the moment you disarmed me." "I don't have a choice," Malfoy shouted. He looked ghostly, like someone already halfway to death. "He'll kill me, he'll kill my family." "I understand," Dumbledore said gently. "That's why I've not confronted you before. If the Dark Lord suspected I knew, he would have had you murdered." Draco flinched at the name. "But you do have a choice," Dumbledore continued. "No one else knows what happened. You can walk away. I'll make sure your family is safe." "You can't." Draco's wand trembled violently. "He told me to do it," he said. "If I didn't." "Come over to the right side, Draco. I can hide you. The order can reach your mother tonight. Your father is safe for now in Azkaban. When the time comes, we can protect him too. You're not a killer." Draco stared, tortured. "But I got this far, didn't I? They all thought I'd fail, but I'm here, and you're defenseless. I have the wand. You're still not a killer." "How would you know?" he whispered. "How would you know what I am?" "Because I've watched you all year. The poisoned mead. The cursed necklace. Your heart wasn't in it." "Shut up." The wand wavered. "I have to do this. I have to." Footsteps thundered on the stairs. Snape emerged, black robes billowing, eyes sharp and cold. "We need to move," Snape said shortly. "The professors will be here any moment." "Severus," Dumbledore said, his voice weighted with something Harry couldn't decipher. "Please." Snape hesitated. For one terrible moment, his face showed something regret, or resolve, or perhaps both. His wand rose with terrible purpose. "Avada Kedavra." The words emerged flat, empty of emotion. Green light erupted with the force of ending worlds. Dumbledore met it with open eyes. The curse struck, and for one impossible moment he seemed to hang suspended, robes spread against the stars like broken wings. Then gravity claimed him. He tumbled backward over the ramparts, falling into darkness, into legend, into memory. Gone. No. Harry exploded from paralysis, the invisibility cloak pooling at his feet. Raw magic crackled around him as he raised his wand, but Snape moved with viper swiftness. "Run!" He seized Draco's arm with bruising force. "Now!" They plunged down the stairs with Harry howling behind them, his spells lighting the walls with fury. Stupefy. Impedimenta. Petrificus totalis. Snape deflected everything without turning, dragging the stumbling Draco along. They burst onto the grounds as chaos erupted throughout the castle. Sectum sempra. The curse tore from Harry's soul, dark and vicious. Snape spun, batting it aside with contemptuous ease. "You dare!" For the first time, emotion blazed in those dead eyes. You dare use my own invention against me? I am the half-blood prince, you ignorant child. Rage transformed Snape's face into something inhuman. Every spell in that book, every innovation mine. And you would turn them against me like your arrogant father. Harry lunged for his wand. Snape's hex sent it spinning into shadow. But reinforcements were coming. Shouts echoed across the grounds. Snape grabbed Draco with both hands. This isn't over. Harry screamed. No, Snape agreed, and for one moment something almost like pity flickered in his eyes. For you, Potter, it's just beginning. Crack. They vanished, leaving Harry alone with his rage and the taste of ashes. Harry. Sirius materialized from the darkness at full sprint, Moody's wooden leg hammering behind. Aura spread across the grounds like hunting hounds. Harry collapsed into his godfather's arms. I couldn't stop them. The words came between sobs. Dumbledore, he's... Moody's eye whirled. What happened to Albus? He's dead. Snape killed him. Moody swore. Others froze in disbelief. Before Harry could explain more, a new commotion drew their attention. Shouts and gasps from the courtyard. A crowd had formed at the base of the astronomy tower. Students in nightclothes. Professors with pale faces. All staring at something on the ground. Move. Moody barked, wooden leg clacking against stone. Or business. The crowd parted like a curtain. Albus Dumbledore lay broken on the grass. Those famous half-moon spectacles set crooked on his nose, one lens spider-webbed with cracks. Blue eyes that had twinkled with secret knowledge now stared blindly at stars he'd once taught students to read. No. McGonagall's whisper broke like glass. Her hand pressed to her mouth couldn't hold back the sob. Not Albus. Not like this. Hagrid's moan could have come from a wounded dragon. Flitwick had gone white as fresh parchment. Even Moody's scarred face showed cracks where grief leaked through. But Sirius barely registered their pain. His mind raced through implications and connections, seeing the chess match's final move. The old manipulator's final manipulation. His last great magic trick. Dumbledore had orchestrated his own death with the same precision he'd manipulated Harry's life and his. Every piece positioned, every reaction calculated. The plan brilliant, terrible, necessary had succeeded. But now the leader of the light lay dead while the Dark Lord lived. The war's balance had shifted catastrophically. And tomorrow, the wizarding world would wake to find its greatest protector gone. Chapter 111, The End of an Era. The next morning broke slow and grey, as if the sky itself mourned. Hogwarts had never felt so quiet. The castle usually stirred with life even at dawn, portraits whispering, students beginning to rise, but today, everything was still. Word of Dumbledore's death had swept through the school like wildfire. By sunrise, even the very walls seemed to grieve. The great oak doors stood open, and a black flag bearing the Hogwarts crest hung above the entrance, its edges fluttering faintly in the breeze. Inside the hospital wing, Harry sat in silence, unsure what to feel. His thoughts were a storm. For years, Dumbledore had been like a grandfather, wise, quirky, always there to protect him when he stumbled into danger. But lately, things had changed. Since Voldemort's return, Harry had grown more aware of the secrets Dumbledore kept and the weight of expectations he placed on him. Sirius's near-death at the Ministry had been the turning point. His time at Grimmauld Place had opened Harry's eyes to the complexity of the wizarding world, and the fact that Dumbledore, whether out of wisdom or manipulation, had played a long game with everyone's lives, including his. Can't hate him, Harry murmured, more to himself than to Sirius, who sat quietly nearby. Should be able to. After everything he kept from me, everything he did to me, to you, but I can't. That's because you're not built for hate, pup. Sirius's voice was gentle. Despite everything they tried to beat into you. They'd talked through the night about the fake Horcrux Harry and Dumbledore had hunted down and the wasted journey. Though Harry and Sirius were not happy about the failed hunt, someone was. Creaker was ecstatic to have Regulus's locket returned, clutching it like a holy relic while tears streamed down his ancient face. McGonagall arrived as the sun finally showed itself, her usual severity cracked by grief. The Ministry insists on a state funeral, she said, lips pursed in disapproval. Though Albus wanted something simple. This afternoon, by the lake. Students, staff, the order. She paused. And every vulture who can wrangle an invitation. He'd have hated that, Harry said. He'd have found it amusing, McGonagall corrected softly. Watching them pretend they supported him while secretly celebrating one less obstacle to their ambitions. By noon, the grounds had transformed. Hundreds of white chairs stood in perfect rows facing the Great Lake, their pristine surfaces almost obscene against the summer grass. The gathering crowd was a study in contrasts, ministry officials in elaborate dress robes mingling uneasily with battle-scarred aurors, Diagon Alley shopkeepers standing beside mysterious figures in travel-worn cloaks. Even a delegation of goblins had come, standing apart with expressions of wary respect. Arthur Hayes materialized at the forest's edge, having operated directly through Hogwarts's ancient wards like they were cobwebs. He found a position near the back, watching the factions of the magical world gather to mourn the fall of a king. A moment later, a figure detached from the crowd and walked toward him. "Glad you could make it," said Sirius Black, his voice low. "I wouldn't miss the end of an era," Arthur replied coolly. Sirius raised an eyebrow. "Didn't think you thought so highly of the headmaster." "I don't," Arthur said flatly. He was a complicated man. Claimed to want the best for the wizarding world, but kept the status quo intact. No change. Just more of the same. Sirius sighed. "Not the best time to speak ill of the dead. You asked for my opinion." "Fair point." Sirius glanced around, then lowered his voice. "Want to hear something interesting? I think the old man planned his death with Snape." Arthur arched a brow. "Oh? Since when did Sirius Black grow a brain and start thinking?" "Since nearly falling through the veil," Sirius replied dryly. "But you're not surprised?" "No. I could feel the curse clinging to him from far away. Even without Snape, he wouldn't have lasted long." "Yeah," Sirius nodded. "I saw it too." Arthur studied the lake. "So, did you invite me here just for the funeral? Or is there something more?" "There is," Sirius admitted. "But after the funeral." Arthur was curious, but as the ceremony began, Sirius gave him a brief nod and returned to the front row beside Harry. From the depths of the lake rose a haunting, melodic hum as the mer people sang their morning song. Their haunting voices echoed across the grounds. Arthur, watching it all unfold, had to admit Dumbledore had been a master politician. He'd made countless allies. Whether those alliances were based on truth or illusion, he couldn't say. The eulogies began. McGonagall spoke first, her voice steady but her hands trembling. Moody followed, along with other ministry figures and friends who had known Dumbledore in life. Then came the moment no one expected. Brilliant white flames erupted around Dumbledore's body and the table upon which it lay. The fire rose high, obscuring the body entirely. White smoke twisted into strange shapes, and for one breathtaking instant, Harry swore he saw a phoenix soaring into the sky. Then the flames vanished. In their place stood a pristine white marble tomb, encasing the body and the table beneath. Arthur stared at the gleaming monument, positioned perfectly to catch the sun's rays, visible from every window in the castle. A permanent reminder of Dumbledore's importance. How typical, he thought with a mixture of amusement and pity. Even in death, he ensures he won't be forgotten. I wonder what headmasters Dippet, Black, or any of the others would think centuries of service, and they rest in distant graveyards while Dumbledore claims the grounds themselves. The tomb stood like a marble accusation against the ordinary deaths of extraordinary people. Even the founders hadn't demanded such prominence in their final rest. But then, Arthur mused, Dumbledore always did believe he was special. And perhaps he was right. A few startled cries rang out as a volley of arrows arced overhead but fell far short of the crowd. Arthur turned his head toward the trees and saw the centaurs lower their bows in solemn tribute before fading into the forest. The mer people, too, slipped beneath the surface and were gone. The ceremony was over. As the mourners began to disperse, Arthur saw Sirius return, this time with Amelia Bones at his side. Arthur greeted her with a slight smirk. "Hello, Madam Bones, or should I say Minister Bones? Good to see you again." "Likewise, Mr. Hayes," she said, lips quirking. "Heard you've been causing trouble in the Muggle world." "Oh? Someone complained." "Yes," Amelia said dryly. "But I've had my hands full with Voldemort, so I sent them packing. Just try not to get caught." "I've done nothing wrong," Arthur replied. "No reason to worry." "Confident about covering your tracks, are you?" Sirius asked. Arthur grinned. "I liked the dumb Sirius better." They laughed. Amelia sobered. "Just be careful. If someone brings proof to the ICW, I won't be able to protect you. They won't find any. Arthur said calmly. His confidence was absolute. Besides, shouldn't you worry more about what's coming? Without Dumbledore, every dark wizard sympathizer will feel emboldened. Unless someone deals with Voldemort directly. She looked at him meaningfully. It would save countless lives. And ensure nothing changes. Arthur's voice hardened. Another Dark Lord would rise within a generation. The rot goes deeper than one madman. Amelia sighed. Well, I need to speak with Minerva about how Hogwarts handles bullying and Muggle-born discrimination. That would be a good start, Arthur said. If you want a more convincing reason, I think that same discrimination played a role in Voldemort's creation. Though, so did his unnatural birth. Sirius blinked. How do you know? Arthur smirked. Oh, so Harry's had his Voldemort life history lessons with Dumbledore? Looks like he passed the notes to you too. Amelia narrowed her eyes. Was Voldemort a Muggle-born? Technically. Squib mother, Muggle father, but descended from Slytherin through the Gaunts. Arthur's smile turned sharp. Ironic, isn't it? The blood purist champion is exactly what he claims to despise. That information could turn some supporters away, Amelia mused. Sirius, we need to meet properly. Soon. Tomorrow, Sirius agreed. My place. Will do, Amelia said. I've got to return. Can't leave the ministry unguarded too long. Goodbye. As Amelia departed, Arthur raised an eyebrow. Is there something brewing between you two? Old Padfoot still has his charm. Sirius grinned. Speaking of which, did you notice Harry with Susan Bones? Like godfather, like godson. I thought he'd end up with Granger. Hermione's too headstrong for him. Susan's a better match. You should have seen Harry this year, he's been happier. Smiling more. Good, Arthur said. Moving on, what did you want to talk about? Not here, Sirius said, glancing around. Too open. Arthur nodded. I know somewhere absolutely private. He grasped Sirius's shoulder. Reality twisted. They vanished from Hogwarts grounds with a crack that made several people spin around in shock. Operating through those wards should have been impossible. Chapter 112, Secrets in the Serpent's Den. Reality snapped back into focus with the distinctive echo of dripping water and ancient stone. Sirius stumbled, catching himself against a damp wall. Bloody hell! You can apparate inside Hogwarts. I'm special that way. Arthur's smile carried insufferable smugness. Even the famous Black Wards bend for me when I ask nicely. That's impossible. Sirius's protest died as he took in their surroundings. Where the devil are we? Carved serpents coiled along wet stone walls, their scales gleaming in the eerie green torchlight. Shadows writhed across the corridor like living things, and the ceiling vanished into darkness above, giving the impression of standing at the bottom of an enormous well. The Chamber of Secrets. Arthur's voice echoed strangely in the vast space. Thought I'd take you somewhere truly private for our conversation. The Chamber of. Sirius's eyes went wide as saucers. Whatever important discussion he'd planned evaporated like morning mist. He spun in a slow circle, drinking in details like a man dying of thirst. His fingers traced ancient carvings with reverent wonder, following the sinuous curves of thousand-year-old serpents. Sweet Merlin. His voice held childlike awe. James would have killed to see this. We searched for it, you know. Every secret passage, every hidden room. Never found it. Hard to find when you need Parseltongue to enter. Arthur gestured toward the main chamber. Come on. The interesting bit's through here. The main chamber opened before them like a cathedral dedicated to serpents. Monolithic pillars carved with coiling snakes rose into shadow, their eyes seeming to track the intruder's movement. At the far end, Slytherin's colossal face gazed down with stone eyes that held an unsettling intelligence. Merlin's beard. Sirius whispered. Harry fought a basilisk in here? He was 12. 60-foot basilisk, to be precise. Arthur's tone was conversational, as if discussing the weather. Should have seen the mess. Blood everywhere, venom eating through stone like acid, shed skin piled higher than a man. He gestured to the perfectly clean floor. Took me ages to clean up. Sirius's wonderment shifted to suspicion. Clean up? You mean you harvested everything? His voice rose with indignation. That was Harry's kill. The spoils should have been his. And let a magical beast rot down here? Please. Arthur shrugged. It was either I harvested it or let time destroy it. Besides, he added with a smirk, the profits funded a rather successful little venture of mine. Sirius sighed, long and theatrical. Fine. How much did you make? That's between me and my vault. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. They stood in silence for a moment, Sirius clearly wrestling between curiosity and indignation. As always with a marauder, curiosity won. Did you find anything else? His eyes gleamed with renewed excitement. Secret rooms? Slytherin's private study? His legendary library? Searched every inch. Arthur shook his head. Nothing. If it exists, it's hidden beyond my ability to find. Probably needs Parseltongue to access. You should have Harry come down and take a look. The knowledge within would be invaluable. Sirius nodded absently, still drinking in the chamber's dark majesty. Then his expression shifted, excitement draining away like water through sand. I almost forgot why we came here. He took a steadying breath and leaned against the ancient stone. It's about Horcruxes. The word seemed to leach warmth from the air itself. I've been investigating, Sirius began, his casual tone at odds with the gravity of the subject. Dumbledore confirmed it before he died. Voldemort aimed for 7. Well, 6 Horcruxes plus his main soul. He counted on his fingers like a morbid shopping list. The diary Harry destroyed. The locket I handled. Whatever ring gave Dumbledore that cursed hand. That's 3. 4, Arthur corrected mildly. I destroyed Ravenclaw's diadem years ago. Found it in the room of requirement. Sirius's jaw dropped. When? Years ago. Didn't seem worth mentioning at the time. Didn't seem worth mentioning. Sirius's voice cracked. Destroying a piece of the Dark Lord's soul didn't seem worth. He visibly collected himself. Right. Fine. 4 down. I know Bellatrix has one. Tried to get it, but she caught on and my plan failed spectacularly. Arthur was genuinely impressed. That Sirius had even discovered Bellatrix possessed a Horcrux showed remarkable investigative work. The man was far sharper than his reputation suggested. Does Voldemort know you're hunting his anchors? Fortunately, no. Sirius grimaced. For some reason, Bellatrix kept her mouth shut. Small mercies. Good for you. Otherwise you'd have the Dark Lord himself knocking on your door. Arthur's tone was light, but the warning was clear. So. 4 destroyed, 1 identified but secured. That leaves 1 mystery. Not a mystery. Sirius's certainty was absolute. I have a theory. Arthur tilted his head. Nagini. Sirius said. That snake's too intelligent, too connected to him. All the clues point to it being a Horcrux. Impressive. Arthur allowed genuine praise to color his voice. I didn't think you had this level of deductive reasoning in you, Black. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Sirius muttered. Arthur smirked. So. Did you call me here to brag, or are you asking for help with the last 2? Neither. Sirius's light tone vanished like a snuffed candle. That's not why I asked you here. I'll handle those somehow. The atmosphere shifted. Even the carved serpents seemed to lean in, stone eyes gleaming with anticipation. I think there's a 7th piece. The words fell like stones into still water. An accidental one. Arthur waited. Harry's connection to Voldemort goes beyond surviving the killing curse. Each word seemed physically painful. The visions, the Parseltongue, the way he can see through Nagini's eyes. If Nagini's a Horcrux, and Harry shares that exact connection, then Harry is one too. The silence that followed was absolute. Arthur slowly began to clap, the sound echoing off ancient stone like a death knell. Bravo, Lord Black! His voice was soft, almost gentle. You've hit the nail precisely on the head. Sirius staggered as if physically struck. His face went grey, aging a decade in seconds. So it's true? My godson he's a Horcrux. Not exactly. Arthur said. I don't think it was a planned Horcrux. Just a fragment of Voldemort's soul that broke off that night and latched onto the nearest living thing. A soul leech, not a crafted vessel. Is that good news? Sirius asked desperately. Can it be removed? Without hurting him? Yes, Arthur said simply. I can do it. Relief hit Sirius like a physical force. His knees buckled, and only the wall kept him upright. Then do it. Please. I'll give you anything, me fortune, my properties, my life. I could. Arthur raised one hand, stemming the flood of promises. But before you start signing over ancestral estates, you and Harry need to decide if removal is truly your best path. What? The word exploded from Sirius. How could leaving a piece of Voldemort in my godson possibly be the right choice? What if it functions as protection? An unwitting shield? Arthur's calm was maddening. I believe it was part of Dumbledore's plan. Dumbledore knew. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. He knew. Of course he knew. Arthur's voice turned clinical. But he had no way to remove it. So what's a chess master to do? Use it. Make it part of the grand design. Understanding dawned horribly on Sirius's face. He raised Harry to be self-sacrificing. The words came strangled, torn from his throat. Every trial, every test, every manipulated yearl to make Harry the kind of person who would walk willingly to his death. The initial plan, certainly. But something changed in Harry's 4th year. Arthur paused for effect. In that graveyard, Voldemort used Harry's blood for his resurrection. So what? What difference does? It created a unique magical paradox. Arthur's explanation took on a professorial air. This is speculation based on magical theory and Dumbledore's actions, but I believe the blood connection created an unprecedented loophole. Now, if Voldemort attempts to kill Harry with the killing curse, the spell will target the foreign soul fragment first. It will destroy the parasite, not the host. You're talking about an extra life. Sirius's voice was hollow. In the final confrontation. Precisely. A second chance when it matters most. How can you be sure? I'm not, Arthur admitted. But I am sure that this became Dumbledore's new plan. A terrible, high-stakes gamble, but a gamble nonetheless. I don't trust him, Sirius said, his voice raw. I don't trust his plans or his gambles. Smart man. Arthur conjured 2 chairs with casual waves. But now you have options. Dumbledore's portrait should activate within days. You could hear the full plan from the source. Then you and Harry can make an informed choice. They sat in contemplative silence, surrounded by Slytherin's serpents and the weight of impossible decisions. You can definitely remove it. Sirius finally asked. Without Dumbledore's death and resurrection gambit. Easily. What would you do? Destroy it immediately. Arthur said without hesitation. I would not tolerate another soul residing in my body, no matter the potential benefit. But then, I'm not Harry Potter. I agree, Sirius said, a new resolve hardening his eyes. But you're right. It has to be Harry's choice, not mine. Then send Dobby with a message when you have decided, Arthur said. I will come. You're doing this for us, how can we repay you? Arthur's lips curved into a rare, genuine smile. Let Harry have a thorough look around this chamber with his parcel tongue. If Slytherin left any secrets behind, consider them my payment. Done, Sirius agreed instantly. With a nod, Arthur grasped Sirius's arm, and the cavernous chamber of secrets dissolved around them once more. They materialized on Hogwarts's grounds, afternoon sun shocking after the chamber's eternal twilight. As they walked toward the castle, Sirius made one last attempt. Any chance you'd consider returning to the wizarding world? Amelia would create a position for someone of your talents. Not interested. Arthur's rejection was absolute. The wizarding world's too small for me. I prefer a bigger stage. Shame. They parted at the courtyard, Sirius heading to find his godson, Arthur vanishing into the afternoon with another impossible apparition. Chapter 113, Grave Robbing. The night was deep, moonlight veiled behind drifting clouds as silence draped over Hogwarts like a morning shroud. The castle slumbered. Not a creature stirred across the grounds. Even the wind held its breath. A soft crack split the air beside the great lake. Arthur materialized at the water's edge, his dark robes blending seamlessly with the shadows. Dumbledore's tomb stood nearby, solemn, undisturbed, pristine in white marble. Time to disturb the dead, Arthur thought without a shred of guilt. With a flick of his fingers, a faint shimmer expanded outward from him like a growing bubble. The air rippled briefly, then stilled. He had conjured a dome of concealment around him and the tomb perfect illusion. Anyone watching would see nothing amiss. Just peaceful stone. Quiet grass. A grave untouched. Forgive the intrusion, headmaster, he murmured to the night air, though remorse was the furthest thing from his mind. But better me than Voldemort. His hands began their dance, precise, elegant movements that would have made the masters of Kamarage nod in approval. The air crackled with otherworldly energy as he brought his palms together, then pulled them apart. The tomb answered. With a low hum, the tomb split open cleanly, geometrically. Marble tiles slid aside, rearranging themselves with architectural grace. Within seconds, the crypt lay exposed beneath the night sky. Dumbledore lay within, looking remarkably peaceful for a man who'd orchestrated his own death. His hands were folded neatly across his chest. His half-moon spectacles still perched on his crooked nose, as if waiting for the next great chess match. Arthur barely spared him a glance. His eyes were drawn instead to the wand nestled in those still fingers. The Elder Wand. The Death Stick. The Wand of Destiny. It looked disappointingly ordinary, just a length of elder wood with peculiar knobs along its length. No aura of power, no singing of destiny. Just wood and core, waiting. Arthur plucked it from Dumbledore's grasp with the same casualness one might borrow a quill. Let's see if you live up to the hype. He gave it a test flick. Sparks flew, obedient and controlled, but he felt no surge, no shift, no bond. It felt ordinary. Still loyal to Draco, are you? Arthur muttered. No matter. I'll find him. Draco Malfoy, who had disarmed Dumbledore before his death, held the wand's allegiance, whether he knew it or not. Arthur would have to best the boy. A minor nuisance, nothing more. He slid the wand into his robes, turned back to the tomb, and resumed his work. More golden sparks. More fluid movements. The tomb reassembled itself seamlessly, slab by slab. Within moments, it looked untouched, pristine and dignified. Arthur dispelled the concealment dome with a whisper. With a final cleansing sweep of his magic, he erased every trace of his presence and vanished into the night, silent as a ghost. 2 Hallows down. 1 more to go. Crack. Arthur appeared directly in the headmaster's office, bypassing all wards and passwords with contemptuous ease. His hands were already moving before the portraits could register the intrusion. Petrificus totalis maxima. The spell rippled outward, freezing every portrait mid-motion. Former headmasters and headmistresses hung suspended like insects in amber, unable to see, hear, or tattle about his presence. The office remained untouched since Dumbledore's passing. No successor had yet been appointed. Even the papers lay exactly where Dumbledore had left them. Arthur glanced around once, then smiled at the only occupant still awake. "Hello, Sorting Hat," he said calmly. The ancient artifact's brim twitched with what might have been surprise. "Mr. Hayes." Its voice rasped directly into his mind, dry as old parchment. "Operating through Hogwarts's ward's a remarkable feat. Though you realize you're not supposed to be here. You can call me Arthur." He conjured a comfortable chair and sat. "We've shared enough delightful conversations to drop formality. Speaking of which, I've never asked Edo you have an actual name." "I have always been the Sorting Hat." A pause, tinged with nostalgia. "Though Godric did call me Hat for short." Not very creative, but affectionate in his way. The brim straightened sternly. "Now don't change the subject. You shouldn't be here. I should alert the professors immediately." Arthur waved a hand dismissively. "Relax. I'm just here to pick something up, then I'll be gone." "You mean to steal?" the Hat snapped. "I will not support such an act. Is it theft if it belongs to no one?" Arthur countered smoothly. "Tell Methat Ring that cursed Dumbledore. Do you know what became of it?" The Hat's fabric seemed to stiffen. "Why would you want such a cursed object? You know what it really was, don't you?" Arthur leaned forward. "Or did Dumbledore manage to hide even that from you?" Silence stretched between them before the Hat sighed. "The Resurrection Stone. One of the Deathly Hallows." The voice dropped lower. "So you seek to become Master of Death, Arthur?" "I'm curious what the title entails," Arthur admitted with a shrug. "It seems like a worthwhile pursuit." "You will be disappointed," the Hat retorted. "There is no Master of Death. The story is a children's fable. You don't become immortal, nor command death itself. They're just enchanted artifacts. Strong, yes. Legendary, perhaps. But not divine. In a world with only wizards and muggles, I'd agree. Arthur's eyes gleamed with hidden knowledge. But given what I've learned about gods, cosmic entities, and higher beings, the legend might be more literal than you imagine. Your post-Hogwarts adventures have been educational, I see. Extensively so. Arthur replied. And I've become much stronger. Then why do you need the Hallows? You are likely more powerful than any wizard in this country already. Arthur laughed, genuine amusement in the sound. Who said I'm competing with wizards anymore? My goals involve beings far beyond mortal magic. The Hallows might be useful tools on that path. Blind pursuit of power corrupts, the Hat warned. You risk losing yourself to ambition. I'm not blind. I've walked this path with eyes wide open. Arthur leaned casually against the desk. Every step has been calculated, every risk weighed. My path is deliberate. He rose and began examining the office with casual interest. So, any idea where the stone is? Dumbledore didn't leave it here, the Hat admitted. I saw him seal it into a golden snitch. Then he left. To give Harry in his will, no doubt. Arthur began pacing. Which means it's in his Gringotts vault, waiting for the ministry to distribute his bequests. Nothing escapes you, does it? Rarely. A mischievous grin spread across Arthur's face. Looks like I'll need to visit Gringotts. Could you not simply wait for it to reach Harry and take it from him? The Hat asked, a hint of exasperation in its mental voice. Where's the challenge in that? Arthur's grin was pure mischief. Besides, I've always wanted to tour Gringotts properly. This reckless streak never showed during your sorting. The Hat sounded genuinely baffled. Had I seen this danger-seeking tendency, you'd have gone straight to Gryffindor. Perhaps many things would have been different. Perhaps. But I'd still have outgrown this world. Arthur shrugged. Besides, I don't seek danger, I simply have absolute confidence in my abilities. Very different things. Still Slytherin to the core. The Hat rustled thoughtfully. So, just how strong have you become? Arthur grinned. Read the headlines. I'm sure I'll feature every now and then. You never give an old relic any rest, the Hat sighed. Is that all you came for? Well. Arthur glanced around innocently. If Dumbledore happened to have a private collection of rare books tucked away somewhere. He was obsessed with magical knowledge, the Hat admitted reluctantly. There is a collection. But only if you swear to return them. I'll make copies if needed, Arthur said. The originals will return untouched. The Hat directed him to a concealed panel behind Armando Dippet's portrait. Inside lay dozens of journals, rare texts, and theoretical treatises in Dumbledore's distinctive handwriting. Arthur's infinity pouch swallowed them gratefully. Is that all? Will I be seeing you again? The Hat asked as Arthur prepared to leave. Even ancient headwear gets lonely. Arthur laughed. If you want someone to talk to, have Headmaster Black's portrait contact me through Sirius Black. I'd genuinely enjoy hearing about the founders firsthand. I may take you up on that offer. Arthur smiled. Then goodbye, Hat. Try not to miss me too much. With a sweep of his hand, he released the portraits from stasis. Arthur vanished before any could fully wake, leaving only the faint scent of ozone and one thoughtful sorting hat. Chapter 114, The Alien Crossroads. The next day, Arthur sat in his study examining Dumbledore's collection. The variety was impressive, everything from simple transfiguration texts to rare tomes on alchemy and battle magic. There were even books on dark magic that had been banned for centuries. Yesterday's raid on the headmaster's office had been more than worth it. He now possessed the Elder Wand, knew the location of the Resurrection Stone, and had acquired enough learning material on magic to last him for years. Arthur set aside a book on soul manipulation. Next on his agenda was retrieving the snitch and the Resurrection Stone within it from Dumbledore's vault. He didn't expect much difficulty. His combination of astral snooping and direct apparition had yet to fail him. The goblins weren't as formidable as some fanfictions believed them to be. They were fierce warriors with their own brand of magic, certainly. But not invincible. If Quirrell possessed by Voldemort could break in, if 3 teenagers could infiltrate their vaults, then their security couldn't be that impressive. Certainly nothing that could stop him. He needed to move quickly though. The Ministry would soon take control of Dumbledore's effects for processing before executing his will. He had 2 days, maybe 3, before the vault was cleaned out. But just as he began plotting his Gringotts visit, a different kind of alarm chimed in his mind. The Skrull detection ward. 2 years ago, during the Captain Marvel incident, Arthur had recorded the Skrull's unique signature. He'd then woven that signature into detection wards around all Phoenix Group properties. Insurance against shape-shifting infiltrators. Now that ward had triggered. A Skrull was in London. And had been near one of his buildings. The Gringotts trip could wait. This suspicious development was more important. As per his knowledge, Skrulls should be in space searching for a new home planet with Carol. A few hours later, a peregrine falcon launched itself from the roof of the Hayes Manor, catching an updraft over the sprawling city. Arthur wanted to search for the Skrull signature while enjoying an afternoon flight over London. He expected a difficult search, a faint needle in London's haystack of mundane and magical energies. He was wrong. It wasn't a needle, it was a bonfire. Multiple Skrull signatures clustered in one location. Too many to be coincidence. Arthur landed in a grimy alley reeking of rotting garbage. He shifted back to human form, and with a wave of his hand, the invisibility cloak settled over him. The building was an old warehouse converted into some kind of social club. Security was non-existent. He slipped through a side door without a sound. As he searched the building, familiar voices from one of the rooms made him pause. "No, this isn't what any of you signed up for." Nick Fury's unmistakable growl. "Earth isn't your home. But it can be a safe harbor while Carol and I search for somewhere you can build new lives." Arthur moved closer, peering through the doorway. Fury stood with Talos, clearly in the middle of negotiations. "Making promises you can't keep, Fury?" Arthur knew finding a new planet for the Skrulls was a lost cause. Habitable planets were rare treasures. Even if they found one, it would likely have inhabitants already. Unless Carol or Fury planned genocide, finding a home for the Skrulls was nearly impossible. "You ask much of us, Fury," Talos said, his expression grim. "This looks like you're taking advantage. Can I really trust your promise that you and Danvers will find us a home?" "We will find you a home." Fury's tone softened from commander to confidant. "But it will take time. Until then, you can help me keep my planet safe." "The one that's keeping you safe?" Talos sighed, the sound of a leader carrying his people's fate. "We are hunted. We have nowhere else to go. I will place my faith in you, Nicholas Fury. I pray you do not fail us." He gestured toward the main area. "But the others, you will have to convince them yourself." Fury gave a sharp nod. Arthur followed as they moved into a larger space where dozens of Skrulls had gathered. Families huddled together. Children with haunted eyes clung to their parents. They were refugees, plain and simple. Fury addressed the crowd with practiced authority, mixing hope with harsh reality. Talos stood beside him, lending support with his own speech. He framed the alliance not as servitude, but as partnership for mutual survival. The Skrulls, broken and desperate, agreed. Arthur stood silently, invisible, considering his options. It looked like this was the moment Skrulls joined S.H.I.E.L.D. and started working for Fury. However, it was a powder keg waiting to explode. When Fury failed to deliver and he would fail, these desperate shapeshifters could become Earth's greatest threat. They could infiltrate any government, any organization. If they ever reached the nuclear arsenals. As Arthur was thinking, a Skrull woman with a gentle face approached Fury, a young boy at her side. "This is Gravik," the woman said, her voice carrying the distinctive Skrull resonance. "He escaped alone when the Kree found his settlement. His parents, they didn't make it." Arthur watched Fury kneel to the boy's level. His one good eye was filled with a surprising softness. "That took courage, son," Fury said gently. "Getting yourself here. You're safe now." The boy, Gravik, stared with hollow eyes that had seen too much. As Fury spoke with the woman Vera, Arthur caught her name. Something shifted in the spy's demeanor. The hard edges of Agent Fury smoothed away, replaced by genuine warmth. There was history here. The way Fury and Vera looked at each other, how Fury's perpetual guard dropped around her. Was this the beginning of something? A secret the master spy would keep from everyone. Even the Avengers. "So you do have a heart after all, Fury." After that small episode, Fury continued organizing the Skrulls with military efficiency. Building a network of shape-shifting spies right under everyone's noses. It explained how a mere field agent could rise to director of S.H.I.E.L.D. in just a few years. No political connections needed when you had an army of perfect infiltrators. They could dig up blackmail on anyone, be anywhere, replace anyone. But had Carol agreed to this? Had she sanctioned turning desperate refugees into Fury's personal intelligence network? If yes, Arthur would stay out of it. If not, he couldn't let this continue. The Skrulls might not threaten him personally, but they were a clear danger to Earth. However, that was for later. Now, it was time to make an appearance. Arthur shifted into his Merlin persona, the same disguise he'd used during the Captain Marvel incident, and then let the invisibility cloak slide from his shoulders, folding it into nothingness. "Agent Fury," he said calmly, materializing in the center of the room. "Talos. Long time no see." The reaction was instantaneous. Weapons appeared from nowhere. Skrulls shifted into defensive stances, some revealing natural armor beneath human facades. Fury's hand snapped to his sidearm with decades of muscle memory. Recognition dawned a heartbeat later. Merlin. Chapter 115, A Warning to Spies. "Fancy seeing you here, Agent Fury." Arthur's voice cut through the warehouse tension like a scalpel through silk. "Shouldn't you be across the pond, polishing spy gadgets in some windowless building?" His gaze shifted to the Skrull leader. "And Talos. I thought the plan was a grand tour of the universe with Carol, not slumming it in a London warehouse." "Before we answer your questions," Fury countered, his tone clipped and devoid of pleasantries, "how about we drop the disguises? Mr. Tour Guide." "Why would I do that?" Arthur examined his fingernails with theatrical fascination. "If you cared about real identities, you wouldn't be recruiting an army of professional identity thieves." His eyes swept the nervous Skrulls. "So what's the game here? Don't think that if you don't drop disguises, I won't know who you are." Fury's smile widened. "Mr. Arthur Hayes." The warehouse went tomb silent. "Oh? A name?" Arthur tilted his head, all mock curiosity. "Someone's been doing homework. What makes you think I'm this?" "Arthur Hayes." "It wasn't hard," Fury stated, his voice flat as a redacted file. "Too many coincidences stacking up like dominoes." He began listing them like evidence at trial. A wealthy, reclusive British teenager buys a mansion in LA months before Carol makes her visit to Earth. "Don't know how you predicted that, maybe magic?" Then MI6 whispers about recruiting the same prodigy, except suddenly he's magically crippled. Same exact time someone got hurt protecting Earth from Kree missiles. Fury wasn't finished. Then London becomes a war zone. Crime lords dropping dead in accidents. Magic rumors everywhere. His grin sharpened. One person connects all the dots. Coincidences and speculation. Arthur examined his nails with feigned boredom. Expected better from the great Nick Fury. "Where's the proof?" "If I had proof," Fury shot back, "you would be on trial for breaking about a dozen international laws, starting with the Covenant." "No, Arthur Hayes would face trial." Arthur's grin could have charmed snakes. "Not me." "Who said you got the right person?" Fury's lips thinned. "Denial won't help you. Whatever helps you sleep at night." Arthur waved a hand dismissively. Arthur's hand carved a lazy arc through the air. Silver energy rippled outward, expanding like a soap bubble until it formed a shimmering dome around the three of them. An isolating barrier to block sounds from leaving the dome. "Relax," Arthur said as Talos flinched. "I just prefer my serious conversations to be private. Now, Talos, what are you doing here with so many of your kind? Shouldn't you be charting star maps with Carol?" The Skrull leader sighed, his shoulders slumping with a weariness that went bone deep. "We were. But following Carol around in space with all the Kree hunting us wasn't practical. Too many dangers, and Carol couldn't protect us all the time. In the end, we decided she would search alone, and we would wait for good news." "And if the good news never comes?" Arthur asked, his voice gentle but laced with steel. "It must," Talos insisted, a desperate hope in his eyes. "The universe is vast. There are countless worlds. New ones, or old ones where life has died out. She will find one. But finding them in the vast emptiness of space would be impossible. That's the only hope we have." Desperation leaked through Talos's calm facade. "What else can we do? Wait somewhere other than this planet?" Arthur's gaze shifted to Fury. "Fury, didn't I warn you about this? How do you guarantee these people don't decide they like Earth enough to take it? A few replaced world leaders, and this planet becomes new Skrullos." "We would not." Talos protested. "We want our own home, not yours." "I have them under observation," Fury said coolly. "With Talos's cooperation." Arthur's laugh could have frozen hell. And when you can't deliver their new home? What then? Then we'll leave without complaints, Talos insisted. You won't have complaints, but other Skrulls will. Working for free for Fury for years, then suddenly learning he couldn't deliver. Arthur shook his head. What then? Then I'll build a sanctuary for them on this planet, Fury said. A sanctuary? On this planet? A world where people kill each other over the color of their skin, the god they worship, or the flag they fly. He gestured vaguely toward the magical world beyond their bubble. This planet can't even peacefully accommodate wizards. You think it will welcome an influx of shape-shifting aliens? You're being too pessimistic. Fury grumbled. I'm a realist. I can foresee a dozen ways this ends in rebellion. Broken promises breed resentment, Fury. And when your private army turns on you, you won't be able to control them. That won't happen, Fury insisted. We will ensure it, Talos added, though his voice lacked conviction. Whatever. Arthur's voice turned deadly serious. I'm not too worried about myself. But warn everyone not to cross me. If they do, I'll have to do a cleanup on this planet. And just like I found you today, I'll find them all. Without warning, Arthur unleashed his magic. The barrier shattered. Pressure slammed down like a giant's fist. Skrulls throughout the warehouse buckled, gasping. The very air seemed to thicken, making each breath a struggle. Then reality shifted. They stood in a ring of fire. A masked ninja appeared moving with inhuman speed, blades flashing. Pain exploded through their bodies as steel pierced flesh. Death came swift and brutal. And then they were back, gasping, alive. The vision had lasted seconds. It felt like eternity. I understand your pain, Arthur said, his voice now a cold whisper turning to everyone. And your desire for a home. But this is your one and only warning. Whatever happens, do not set your sights on this planet. Because if you do... He let the thread hang in the air. What you just saw will become your reality. He withdrew his magic as if flipping a switch. The pressure vanished. The air grew light again. Then as if nothing had happened, Arthur's demeanor shifted completely. He grinned at Fury with genuine amusement. So, Fury. I never took you for the romantic type. When did you fall in love? What? Fury actually sputtered. That Skrull woman. Vera. Arthur's grin widened. The great Nick Fury, going soft for an alien? I will have to tell Carol. You will invite me to your marriage, right? Don't worry, I won't scare your guests like today. Don't make things up. We're just friends. Fury protested. Whatever makes you happy. Arthur's knowing smile said otherwise. So when was the last time you spoke to Carol? A few months ago. Fury straightened his jacket, desperate to reclaim dignity. Through Talos's ship. So she didn't return? Busy fighting the Kree. Yes. Now, my turn, Fury said, his professional mask snapping back into place. How did you find us? This is my city, Fury. I'm the British tour guide, remember? Arthur replied with a glib shrug. Frankly, I'm shocked you held this meeting here. It's almost like you wanted me to find you. Our location was secure, Fury insisted. Not secure enough, apparently. So, what's your clearance level at S.H.I.E.L.D. these days? Fury hesitated. Level 7. Climbing the ladder quickly. Aiming for the director's chair. That's classified. Arthur turned to Talos with a look of mock concern. You should be careful, Talos. A man this ambitious will keep your existence a secret from his superiors, use you to get to the top, and then discard you when you're no longer useful. Don't try to drive a wedge between us, Hayes, Fury warned. I'm transparent with him. There's that name again. Is he as charming and powerful as I am? You should know. You are him, Fury said, his patience wearing thin. So, what's the plan? Abandon the wizarding world to build a business empire in ours. You should ask him yourself. I hear he's open to meetings, Arthur said airily. But from what I've heard, the wizarding world rejected him, and he was more than happy to return the favor. While breaking their most sacred law. For the truly powerful, rules are merely suggestions, Arthur stated, his voice taking on a philosophical edge. Look at your own world. Powerful corporations and countries operate above the law every day. When you are strong enough, the rules bend for you. It's the simple, ugly truth of the world. You have a skewed view of how things work. I just see things as they are. Now, Arthur said, his tone brightening again, do let me know when Carol is back in town. We should all get together for a catch-up. Before Fury or Talos could respond, he gave a casual wave. Crack. He vanished without even a proper goodbye, leaving Fury and Talos standing in a warehouse full of confused Skrulls. Well, Talos said after a long moment. That was. Yet. Fury holstered his weapon with hands that definitely weren't trembling. It was. Are you certain his name is Arthur Hayes? Positive. Carol confirmed it. Fury's laugh held no humor. Tricked her into revealing it. Vera approached cautiously, her son Gravik hiding behind her. Nicholas? What happened? The pressure, the things we saw. A powerful wizard, Talos answered before Fury could, his voice grim. We just met someone who could end every one of us without breaking a sweat. And he made sure we knew it. Fury looked at the assembled Skrullshi's new assets, his secret weapons. For the first time since hatching this plan, he wondered if he'd made a terrible mistake. Because Arthur Hayes was right about one thing. When desperate people realized their savior had failed them, they rarely forgave. And shapeshifters with nothing left to lose? That was a nightmare even Nick Fury didn't want to contemplate. All right, people, he called out, his voice a commanding bark that cut through the fear. Show's over. Let's get to work. We've got a planet to protect. Chapter 116, Vault Hunting. Arthur appeared at the apparition point in Diagon Alley with a soft crack. The investigation into the Skrull situation had wrapped up quicker than expected, leaving the afternoon wide open. Perfect timing for a little Gringotts reconnaissance. He was still wearing his Merlin disguise because the appearance of Arthur Hayes in Diagon Alley and a break-in at Gringotts on the same day would be far too convenient a coincidence. As for the Skrull infestation? That was a problem for another time. Yes, he could, with some effort, hunt down and eliminate every last one of them. Clean. Efficient. Simple. But also foolish. Arthur understood the timeline's delicate balance. Wiping out the Skrulls now would derail it entirely. Fury, without his alien allies, would never ascend to director of S.H.I.E.L.D. The math was simple. Fury was a competent field agent with trust issues and a talent for survival. Good qualities, but not director material. Not without help. Enter the Skrulls. With shapeshifters, Fury could know anything, be anywhere, blackmail anyone. The suspicious death of a rival here, the convenient discovery of corruption there. In 10 years, he'd run S.H.I.E.L.D. Without them? He'd be lucky to make deputy director before retirement. So, the Skrulls need to stay. For now. Besides, Talos still had them under control. The real danger wouldn't come for years when disillusioned Skrull children, raised on broken promises, grew into bitter adults. When hope curdled into rage. Future Arthur's problem, he decided. The present had its own issues. Diagon Alley was a ghost town. Half the shops had shutters drawn, windows dark. The few wizards who hurried past kept their heads down, hands close to their wands. Excuse me, Arthur said to a harried-looking witch rushing by. What happened here? She glanced around nervously before answering. Where've you been, dearie? Death Eaters are running wild since Dumbledore passed. 3 attacks just this week. The aurors. Stretched thinner than parchment. She leaned in, her voice dropping. Without Dumbledore, they're emboldened. Mark my words, dark days ahead. She scurried off before Arthur could respond. Wonderful, he thought darkly. The wizarding world's falling apart. Serves them right. The leaky cauldron at least maintained its usual dingy charm. Tom the barkeeper barely looked up as Arthur entered. Room for the night. 5 galleons. Tom slid a key across the bar. 3rd floor, end of the hall. No visitors after midnight. Arthur took the key without comment. The room was exactly what 5 galleons bought, cramped, musty, and featuring a bed that had seen better centuries. Perfect for his needs. Winky, he called softly. The house elf appeared with her usual efficiency. Master Arthur needs Winky. Guard duty. Anyone tries to enter. Winky stuns first, questions later. She posed in some weird attacking pose. Winky has been practicing. Where did Yun ever mind? Some questions were better left unasked. Just keep my body safe. Arthur lay back on the questionable bed and let his astral form slip free. The sensation never got old, that moment of weightless liberation as his consciousness separated from flesh. He drifted through the wall, leaving his body under Winky's watchful gaze. Gringotts loomed ahead, white marble arrogance and goblin pride incarnate. The grand doors stood open, guards stationed with sharp eyes and sharper spears. Arthur glided past them like smoke. No protections against this kind of magic, not yet. Now, to find the vaults. Yes, vaults, plural. Since this trip was reconnaissance, Arthur decided he might as well map out where other families kept their treasures. That knowledge could prove invaluable later. Besides, doing all this just to locate Dumbledore's vault alone wouldn't justify the effort. Still, he had no intention of looting any vaults tonight. Doing so now would bring the full wrath of the wizarding world down on Gringotts, potentially sparking a three-way war between the Ministry, Voldemort, and the goblins. Arthur wasn't fond of wizarding society, but he had no desire to see it reduced to ash. And the deaths of goblins, creatures who had done him no harm, would weigh on his conscience more than he cared to admit. No, his plan was far more elegant. He would wait. When the war was over and the Death Eaters lay dead or rotting in Azkaban, a mysterious thief would sweep in to empty their vaults. The goblins could plead ignorance, and a ministry weary from war would have little appetite for a full-scale investigation into the missing fortunes of convicted terrorists. The main hall of Gringotts buzzed with activity. Goblins tallied coins with meticulous precision. Witches and wizards whispered over contracts, all of them pretending the world outside wasn't on fire. Arthur drifted deeper into the bank. He needed to know the locations of the vaults of Dumbledore's and the rest of his would-be targets. Which meant finding the room where these records were kept. It took patience. Gringotts was a maze of tunnels and chambers, each more confusing than the last. But goblins loved their order. Eventually, Arthur found what he was looking for. A massive board covered one wall, names and vault numbers arranged in perfect columns. The goblin's obsessive need for organization worked in his favor. He memorized them swiftly. Malfoy 506. Lestrange 711. Not 423. Every Death Eater family, every neutral house, every possible ally or enemy. Now came the real reconnaissance. The Malfoy vault showed signs of strain. The piles of gold were smaller than he expected, the heirlooms looking lonely on vast, empty shelves. Funding a Dark Lord was an expensive business. The Knot vault held more gold, though not untouched by Voldemort's demands. Lestrange made Arthur pause. Inside, piles of gold and jewels lay beside cursed objects that pulsed with dark magic. But the one thing he sought was missing. Hufflepuff's cup was not there. Bellatrix, paranoid as ever after Sirius's failed attempt, must have moved it. A minor setback. Caro. Rookwood. Dollahove. He visited them all, memorizing layouts and contents. One day, their riches would serve better causes. Curiosity drew him to the older vaults. The Black family vault made him whistle silently. Sirius hadn't exaggerated, centuries of accumulated wealth glittered in the torchlight. Dark artifacts lined the walls, some radiating malice even in the astral plane. The Potter vault surprised him. A decent pile of gold, yes. Some family heirlooms. But for an old house? It seemed modest. The long wizarding wars against Grindelwald and Voldemort had clearly bled them dry. Arthur then searched for vaults of extinct families. Surely some ancient lines had died out, leaving treasures unclaimed. Nothing. A quick scan of a goblin overseer's mind revealed the reason. A joint Gringotts ministry law stipulated that any vault left unclaimed for a century would have its contents split equally between the two institutions. No wonder Gringotts never advertised heritage tests. Every dead family line meant profit split with the ministry. A perfect scam wrapped in legal language. Finally, he reached his target. Dumbledore's vault. Dumbledore's vault was almost disappointing in its normalcy. A respectable stack of galleons, some dusty books, various magical instruments. Then he found it. The golden snitch sat innocently on a shelf, looking like nothing more than a Quidditch souvenir. His astral fingers passed through uselessly. Right. Need to be physical for this. He memorized the vault's location and began the journey back to his body. The return trip always felt longer, anticipation making him impatient. Winky looked up alertly as his consciousness settled back into flesh. No troubles, Master. No one came. Good work. Arthur sat up, cracking his neck. You can go. I'll be back shortly. Winky vanished with a pop. Arthur didn't waste a second. Crack. He appeared directly inside Dumbledore's vault. He moved quickly, gathering anything of interest. A rare tome here, a curious silver instrument there. Who could prove Dumbledore hadn't removed them himself before dying? Finally, he reached for the golden snitch. There was no need for a password or a puzzle. He simply clenched his fist. The golden shell crumpled with a faint crunch. From the mangled wreckage, something small and black tumbled into his open palm. It was a stone, rough-hewn and imperfect, with a hairline crack running down its center. It absorbed all light, a tiny piece of void in his hand. The Resurrection Stone. Arthur now held all three Hallows. Chapter 117, Echoes of the Dead. Arthur stored away the Resurrection Stone carefully and turned his attention to the crumpled golden snitch. Its wings hung limp, the central panel crushed beyond recognition. Time to restore it. Reparo. The crushed gold shimmered and reformed, wings twitching faintly as the snitch returned to its perfect spherical shape. Arthur set it gently back where he'd found it, as if nothing had ever happened. Time to go home. With a sharp crack, he vanished from Dumbledore's vault and reappeared in his study at Hayes Manor. Excitement thrummed in his veins as he strode to the polished mahogany desk at the center of the room. One by one, he laid out his prizes. The invisibility cloak, folded neatly, its liquid silver fabric catching faint light like flowing water. Beside it, he placed the Elder Wand, its knobbly length looking deceptively plain. Finally, he set the Resurrection Stone between them. The cloak. The wand. The stone. The three deathly Hallows, united for the first time in who knew how long. Arthur waited, every sense attuned to the slightest shift in reality. Nothing happened. The air didn't crackle with cosmic energy. The shadows didn't stir with ancient power. Death did not appear to shake his hand in hand over business cards. Of course. He hadn't really expected it to work. Even if the legend was more than a children's tale, the Elder Wand's allegiance still belonged to Draco Malfoy. A minor hurdle he would deal with soon enough. But a more troubling thought surfaced. The wand required allegiance won through defeat. What if the other Hallows had similar requirements? The stone's last true master was Voldemort, through the Gaunt line. Killing him was already on the to-do list. But the cloak, its ownership had passed down the Potter line for generations. Its current, rightful owner was Harry. And Arthur wouldn't he kill Harry Potter just to complete a set? Power was his goal, yes. But he had limits. He eliminated threats. He took revenge. Those he could justify. But murdering an innocent boy to satisfy a legend? That was the first step on a path he refused to walk, the path that led to becoming a power-obsessed monster. It was a line he would not cross, even if it meant he could never truly become the master of death. He exhaled, pushing the thought aside. It was only a possibility, after all. And if true, perhaps he could claim mastery once Harry died naturally. He could wait. For now, there was a far more interesting experiment to run. Arthur picked up the Resurrection Stone, its surface unnaturally smooth against his skin. The legend said to turn it 3 times in hand. He did so, focusing his mind on a single, powerful name. Salazar Slytherin. Nothing happened. The study remained still, silent but for the faint crackle of the fireplace. No ghostly apparitions, no spectral founders. Arthur frowned and tried again. Godric Gryffindor. Merlin. Even people from the Muggle world. Isaac Newton. Leonardo da Vinci. Still nothing. The study remained stubbornly empty of ghosts. Either the legend was flawed, or there were rules he didn't understand. Perhaps it only worked on those he knew personally. Or, more likely, it only worked on souls who had not yet moved on. Reincarnated souls wouldn't answer his calendar. Arthur himself was living proof that death wasn't an ending but a transition. The souls he had called were likely long gone, living new lives somewhere else in the cosmos. Time to test the theory. He turned the stone again, this time picturing the faces of 3 Dark Lords he'd recently executed Dan the rogue American wizard north. The air grew cold. 4 shimmering figures materialized from the shadows, their forms faintly luminous, their expressions twisted with rage and disbelief. You. North's voice echoed eerily, seeming to come from everywhere at once. You dare. Interesting. Arthur cut him off, studying the ghost. You see me clearly. Tell me, North, can you see what I'm holding? North's eyes widened in recognition. The resurrection stone. That's impossible. How did you? So these were real souls, not mere echoes. And they retained their memories from life. They know things their living selves knew. Proof the Hallows were indeed connected to death itself, not just powerful artifacts, but something greater. Enjoying the afterlife? Arthur asked conversationally. Please give my regards to whatever passes for hell. Their silent, murderous rage was answer enough. With a mental flick, he dismissed them, sending their souls back to whatever limbo they occupied. Now for the main event. There was one soul he was certain had not moved on yet. He turned the stone one last time. Albus Dumbledore. The familiar, half-moon spectacles and long, silver beard solidified before him. Dumbledore looked just as he had in life, only fainter, more ethereal. His expression was one of profound shock. Mr. Hayes. Dumbledore's voice carried that familiar blend of disappointment and curiosity. I must say, I'm surprised. The stone was meant for Harry. Lots of things were meant for Harry. Arthur leaned back in his chair, studying the ghost. Your grand plan. Your perfect sacrifice. Too bad I don't follow scripts. You took the Elder Wand as well, I presume. From your cold, dead fingers. Arthur smiled at the ghost's flinch. Well, technically from your cold, dead tomb, but the principle stands. It won't work for you. I arranged for its power to die with me. Arthur laughed. Oh, Albus. You, the master manipulator, miscalculated at the final moment. You arranged for Severus to kill you, but you forgot who disarmed you on that tower first. The wand's allegiance passed to Draco Malfoy. He paused for effect. And it won't be his for long. Dumbledore's form seemed to sag. I had not considered. You never do consider all the angles, do you? Arthur said with mild amusement. But I can't fault you. I've played chess master a few times myself. What is your plan, Arthur? What do you intend to do? Become the master of death, of course, Arthur replied breezily. I'm curious what the title actually entails. You will never find the third Hallow, Dumbledore stated, a hint of his old manipulative certainty returning. Already have it, Arthur said, gesturing to the cloak on the desk. Replaced Harry's with a very high-quality fake years ago. He never noticed the difference. The shock on Dumbledore's face was immensely satisfying. So, you are the master of death now? Not yet. Just need to have a little chat with young Mr. Malfoy to secure the wand's allegiance. Shouldn't be too difficult. And then? What will you do with such power? Dumbledore's voice was laced with dread. Rule the world? Enslave it? Gods, no. Arthur scoffed at the very idea. That sounds like an exhausting amount of paperwork and responsibility. My goal has always been the acquisition of power itself, not the tedious chore of wielding it over others. A flicker of relief crossed Dumbledore's face. Speaking of chores, Arthur continued, I'll be dealing with Harry's pesky little soul problem soon. So don't be surprised if he pays you a visit in the great beyond. Soul? You mean you're going to kill Harry? Alarm flickered across the ghost's face. Your faith in me is touching. Arthur waved dismissively. Run along, Professor. Puzzle it out in whatever passes for the afterlife's waiting room. Before Dumbledore could respond, Arthur dismissed him with a thought. The old man's form unraveled, scattering like smoke. Arthur chuckled, imagining Dumbledore's ghost fretting and trying to untangle his intentions. Let the old manipulator stew for once. But his amusement faded as he stared at the stone. There were two souls he had avoided summoning. Two people whose memory was a quiet, persistent ache in his heart. His parents in this life, the ones he had come to truly accept as his own. A knot of anxiety coiled tight in his chest. What if they hadn't moved on? What if they had been watching all this time, seeing their son turn into this? An isolated, power-obsessed man with no friends to lean on. A life defined by ambition and revenge. A son chasing goals they would never understand. No parent would want that for their child. Would they have recoiled in horror, seeing what he had done? The people he had killed? The cold pragmatism with which he had dismantled his enemies? Arthur's hand trembled, ever so slightly. He didn't want to know. But he had to. With a deep, steadying breath, he raised the stone. Once. Twice. 3 times. He closed his eyes, focusing on his mother's warm smile, the sound of his father's encouraging laugh. Sarah Hayes. Richard Hayes. Chapter 118, The Weight of Love. The temperature dropped gently, like autumn stealing into summer. Not the bone-deep cold of vengeful spirits, but something softer. Familiar. Arthur's hand trembled on the resurrection stone. Arthur. His mother's voice. Exactly as he remembered warm honey over morning tea. Son. His father. That subtle Welsh accent bleeding through, the one he'd never quite managed to Polish away. Arthur opened his eyes. They stood before him in shimmering translucence, as vivid as they had been that final morning. Sarah's eyes that could spot a lie at 1,000 paces. Richard's crooked smile that had sealed deals and solved problems with equal ease. Mom. Dad. Oh, my beautiful boy. Sarah's ghostly hand reached for his face, stopping just short. Look at you. All grown up and carrying the world on those shoulders. Still trying to do everything alone, Richard said, a familiar note of fond exasperation in his voice. Some things never change. The words Arthur had rehearsed for years tumbled out in a rush. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The market tips, the investments I made you targets. If I hadn't been so eager to live the life of a rich kid, to... Stop. Richard's voice carried CEO authority. Stop right there. But... Arthur Hayes. Sarah's voice cracked like a whip. You were a child. A child who loved his parents so much he tried to give them the world. The only thing you're guilty of is loving us. The information I gave you was a gift, Richard interrupted. Our brilliant boy, always 3 steps ahead of everyone else, wanting to share his insights with us. How could that ever be wrong? It got you killed. Arthur's voice broke, the words escaping in a strangled hiss. No. Sarah's voice turned fierce. Greedy men with guns killed us. Men who would have found other reasons if not for the money. That's on them, not you. I should have been more careful. We should have been more careful, Richard corrected. We were the adults. We knew sudden wealth brought problems. Security, discretion, that was our responsibility, not yours. Arthur shook his head violently, fists clenching as if he could squeeze the guilt from his soul. I knew the world was dangerous. I knew. I should have protected you. Stop. Richard's tone carried the same authority that had once made boardrooms fall silent. We need to have a conversation we should have had while alive. Arthur froze. What do you mean? Sarah's smile was tinged with sadness. We knew, darling. From the beginning. His breath caught. Knew what? That you were different. She gestured faintly, as if words couldn't quite capture it. Our not yet 10-year-old predicting market trends like he'd seen the future. Understanding things no child should. Watching people, place always cataloging, always calculating. Arthur's chest felt tight. You knew. Parents know their children, Richard said simply. We knew you weren't ordinary. And we didn't care. You were our son. And you never said anything. What was there to say? Sarah smiled. You were our son. You let us love you, tuck you in, tell terrible jokes at breakfast. That was everything. We figured you'd tell us when you were ready, Richard added. Or not. It didn't matter. You chose to be ours. That was enough. Silence stretched between them, heavy with years of unspoken understanding. I killed them. The confession came out flat. The men who murdered you. All of them. His parents exchanged a look that needed no words. We know, Sarah whispered. We watched. Are you disappointed? We're sad, Richard admitted. Not disappointed. Sad that you felt you had to carry that weight. We would have preferred you chose differently, Sarah said softly. Found peace instead of vengeance. But we understand why you couldn't. They were monsters. Yes, Sarah agreed. But hunting monsters changes the hunter. You're so young to carry so much blood. I couldn't let them live. Arthur's voice hardened. I couldn't. We understand, Richard said gently. Just promise us you won't become what you fought against. Don't let your humanity slip away. Arthur nodded slowly. I promise. I'll keep my mind, my soul intact. Good. Sarah's smile was watery but real. Now tell us about this wizard business. Our son can do actual magic. The change of subject was deliberate, parental manipulation at its finest. Arthur let them guide him to safer ground. One of the strongest alive, he couldn't help bragging. And I'm only 20. Still so young, Richard marveled. All that power, and barely started living. I've lived plenty. You've achieved plenty, Sarah corrected. That's not the same thing. When's the last time you did something just for joy? The business brings satisfaction. Satisfaction isn't joy, Richard said. When did you last laugh with friends? Real, belly-deep laughter. I have friends. Daniel. Your business partner who calls you Mr. Hayes, Sarah interrupted. Winky, who worships you. Aurora, who still sees you as her former charge. They're friends. Name one person you'd call at 3 in the morning just to talk, Richard challenged. Not for help, not for business. Just to hear another voice. Arthur opened his mouth. Closed it. That's what we thought, Sarah said sadly. Oh, darling. You've built such impressive walls. But walls keep out love as well as pain. It's safer. It's not living, Richard said firmly. Son, you're treating life like a game. Gain power, defeat the enemy, level up, find the next challenge. That's not how it works. Then how does it work? Messily, Sarah said. With mistakes and laughter and heartbreak and joy. With people who matter more than power. Arthur bowed his head. I don't remember how. After you died, I just shut down that part of myself. Only when I'm strong enough to protect those I love can I. There's no such thing as strong enough, Richard said softly. There will always be someone stronger. The point isn't to be invincible. It's to be human. Arthur felt the fight go out of him. He slumped back in his chair, knowing they were right. He had known it all along. Why can I still call you? He asked. Why haven't you moved on? How could we? Sarah asked. Our brilliant, lonely boy achieved everything except happiness. We can't leave until we know you'll be okay. I am okay. You're functioning, Richard corrected. That's not the same thing. We want to see you living before we go. With someone special, Sarah added with maternal determination. Speaking of which, Aurora's lovely. Mum, no. Arthur actually laughed. She's like a dumb big sister. Anything else would be incredibly weird. Fine, Sarah sighed. But you need someone. Someone who sees past the walls to the man behind them. I don't have time. You have nothing but time, Richard countered. You're 20. Brilliant, powerful, successful, and completely alone. You don't have to be. They talked for hours after that. Arthur told them everything: Phoenix Group's success, his magical feats, his brushes with cosmic powers. They listened, pride and worry mingling in equal measure. The Ancient One sounds terrifying, Sarah said after hearing about Kamarage. She is, Arthur agreed. But kind. And Carol Danvers? Aliens. Richard shook his head. When I said I want you to expand your horizons, I meant maybe join a football fan club or something. Arthur chuckled. Well, I don't watch football. Maybe start, Richard said. They shared stories, jokes, and memories. For a few precious hours, it was almost like having them back. Almost like being whole. But even ghosts grow weary. We should go, Sarah finally said. This isn't right, keeping us here. I could call you again. No. Richard's voice was firm. You can't, and you won't. This was goodbye, son. The one we never got to have. But. No buts, Sarah said. We'll be watching, waiting to see you live. Really live. But no more conversations. The dead and the living shouldn't cling to each other. What if I need you? You don't need us, Richard said. You never really did. You're stronger than you know. You just need to let others see that strength isn't all you are. Promise us, Sarah insisted. Promise you'll try. Make friends. Fall in love. Make mistakes. Be human. I promise, Arthur said, meaning it. They began to fade, the stone's power waning. We love you, they said in unison. We're so proud of who you've become. Now become more. I love you too, Arthur whispered. And they were gone. He sat alone in his study, the resurrection stone cold in his palm. No tear she'd shed those years ago. But something in his chest had shifted, loosened. A weight he'd carried so long he'd forgotten it wasn't part of him. His parents had known he was different. Had loved him anyway. Had died without blame or regret. And they wanted him to live. Arthur set the stone aside and poured himself a generous measure of fire whiskey. Outside, London glittered with possibilities he'd ignored for too long. To living, he toasted the empty air. Whatever that means. Arthur sat alone in his study, the Hallows on his desk suddenly seeming less like keys to ultimate power and more like childish trinkets. His parents had given him one final gift. A new mission. His next great quest, it seemed, wasn't to master death. It was to master living. Chapter 119, Learning to Live. Arthur woke at dawn with his parents' parting words echoing in his mind. Make friends and live. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling as morning light crept across the plaster. Friends. The word felt foreign on his tongue, like trying to speak a language he'd never learned. Maybe he'd had friends in his past life, but those memories had faded long ago. Now, at 20, he realized he didn't even know where to begin. The problem was obvious. He'd been living this life like a carefully managed simulation. The people around him weren't Plethi were characters from stories he half remembered. NPCs in a game where he already knew the plot, the twists, and the ending. Sure, he'd changed a few outcomes here and there, but beneath it all, everything remained a game. Level up. Get stronger. Defeat the final boss. Arthur mentally reviewed the people in his orbit. Aurora might be the closest thing to a friend he had, but even that felt conditional. When push came to shove, when he and MI6 inevitably clashed, which side would she choose? His pessimistic side whispered she'd choose duty over him. That's what agents did. Carol Danvers? They'd connected during her brief time on Earth, but she was off fighting the Kree Empire now. They hadn't spoken since she'd left. Could you call someone a friend when they were literally light years away? Fury was the furthest thing from a friend imaginable. The spy trusted no one, and Arthur returned the sentiment. Harry and Sirius showed promise, but right now they were still just chess pieces on the board marked Harry Potter plot. Maybe after Voldemort's defeat, things would change. Maybe they'd become real to him, living, breathing people rather than storybook characters walking a predetermined path. This must be what his parents had seen. What they'd wanted to change. Living meant existing in the present without constantly calculating future outcomes. Making friends, having fun, making mistakes, falling in love. Being human instead of playing at being human. The thought terrified him more than facing Thanos ever could. Winky, he called. She appeared instantly with a soft pop. Master needs breakfast. Actually, I was wondering, how do you see me? Winky's tennis ball eyes widened even further. Winky is Master's elf. Winky serves. But when I asked you to be my elf, I wanted you to be part of my family. Is Winky, my family? She twisted the tea towel in her hands nervously. Winky, thinks Winky is Master Hayes's family. Arthur studied her carefully. Fear flickered in those enormous eyes not of him, but of overstepping. She considered herself part of the Hayes family because she was bound to serve it. But that wasn't what he wanted. He wanted a family member, not a servant who obeyed his every command. There were good signs, small shoots of genuine connection. But it would take time before Winky truly saw herself as family. The day she felt confident enough to argue with him would be the day she truly believed she belonged. Yes, Arthur said gently. Winky is part of the Hayes family. Thank you. She vanished with a confused pop, leaving Arthur alone once again. After breakfast, Arthur decided on a bold step. He would visit Phoenix Group headquarters not as the ghostly presence his employees whispered about, but as a man trying to be visible. When he walked in, the front desk guard nearly fell out of his chair. Mr. Hayes. We weren't expecting. Just visiting, Arthur said, attempting casual. It came out awkward, bordering on ominous. Carry on. The building buzzed with 1990s idea of cutting-edge technology. Fax machines chirped, dot matrix printers chattered, and monitors glowed with that distinctive CRT green. Arthur walked through it like a general inspecting troops, if the general had forgotten how to make small talk. Morning, he tried with a passing analyst. The woman squeaked and fled. Nice weather, he attempted with someone from accounting. They mumbled something about quarterly reports and escaped into the lift. He found Daniel Wong in the executive lounge, bent over quarterly reports with a cup of black coffee. Let me get this straight, Daniel said, looking up. You want to make friends with people here? Is that so strange? Arthur, your entire aura screams stay away. Your eyes don't help either. These eyes? Don't they make me look cool? Cool and untouchable. Daniel took a sip of coffee. Why this sudden interest? My parents think I need friends. Real ones, not just business associates or people who fear me. Your parents, who are dead. Yes. Long story. Arthur waved the point away. But they're right. So, Danielba my first friend. Daniel blinked. Apart from work, when have we ever spent time together? We could try now. What do you like? Want to catch a football match at the stadium? Daniel raised a brow. What if I say no? Will you magic me into agreeing? I want friends, not puppets. A small smile tugged at Daniel's lips. All right. There's a United vs Arsenal match next week. I'll get tickets. You do know what football is, right? Just book them. Arthur gave him a look before vanishing. Encouraged by this small victory, Arthur spent the next few days roaming London, trying to experience an ordinary life. He slipped into cozy cafes, lingered in bustling pubs. He didn't exactly try to make friends, but he was open to conversation, should someone start one. No one did. He sat in corners, nursing pints and eavesdropping on conversations about mortgages, bad bosses, and television shows. The talk washed over him like white noise. After years of isolation, he'd become a true introvert. Worse, his subconscious automatically judged everyone he met as unworthy of attention and friendship. He didn't mean to. But with every interaction, boredom crept in. He'd start calculating their futures, their potential usefulness, their threat level. They'd never be more than passing faces in the cosmic drama of his life. After a couple of days of this routine, Arthur gave up. Maybe I should move to New York, he mused. Teasing Tony Stark sounds fun. Maybe we could even be friends. A week had passed since Dumbledore's death, but Sirius hadn't sent word yet. Perhaps Harry was still processing his grief, or maybe Sirius simply hadn't found the right moment to discuss Horcruxes with Voldemort's forces so active. Either way, removing the soul fragment from Harry remained on hold. So Arthur turned inward, drowning himself in Dumbledore's collection of arcane books. At least magical theory never ran away when he tried to understand it. An emergency call from Daniel came 3 days later. We have a situation, Daniel's voice was tight. Someone broke into the building last night. I'll be right there. Arthur appeared 30 minutes later, having chosen the mundane route instead of just materializing inside. His wards hadn't alerted him, which meant this wasn't a magical intrusion. A mundane intruder, then. Interesting. The security department looked like a battlefield. Every guard present sported injuries, black eyes, split lips, hands pressed gingerly to ribs. His hand-picked team, all ex-military or special forces, had been thoroughly humiliated. Thorn, the security chief, looked worst of all. Sir, I take full responsibility. Spare me the ceremony, Thorn. What happened? Single intruder. Female. Came in around 2 a.m. Cut the main power manually, then sabotaged the backup generators. 17 minutes of complete blackout. In that time, she accessed 5 floors, including the archives. No alarms. None. She neutralized them. She defeated everyone. Yes. Took out every guard who crossed her path swiftly, non-lethally. Broke a few ribs maybe, but no fatalities. Footage. Destroyed. Of course she did. Arthur moved through the offices, magical senses extended. Nothing. Not a trace of power, magic or otherwise. What did she take? That's the strange part, Thorn said. Nothing's missing. She accessed our files, spent time in the archives, then left. And your assessment of her combat ability? Thorn hesitated, then spoke grimly. Sir. I think she might be stronger than you. Arthur's eyes narrowed. Stronger. She moved like smoke. Guards couldn't predict her strikes. Fast, precise, and playful. like she was enjoying herself. This piqued Arthur's interest. A woman who could demolish his security team without killing anyone? Someone potentially enhanced? Hand? Or someone from the Red Room? Maybe even the Black Widow herself? He wasn't entirely certain of the current timeline regarding Natasha Romanoff, but it should be unlikely. Anything useful? Daniel asked, appearing in the doorway. Nothing concrete. But whoever she is, she's exceptional. And dangerous. For the mundane. Arthur headed for the exit. Handle the cleanup. Finding her will require special tools. Special tools? Yes. Arthur's smile was sharp. Leave her to me. Back at Hayes Manor, Arthur entered his secure vault and withdrew a time turner from its protective case. The delicate hourglass swirled with temporal energy, sand dancing in impossible patterns. With no way to trace her through conventional means, the time turner offered the most direct solution. He could observe the break-in as it happened, learn who this woman was and why she'd targeted his company. 5 precise spins backward. Time to meet the woman who humbled my warriors, and learn why. Chapter 120, An Elegant Battle. Arthur materialized outside Phoenix Group at 1:45 a.m., invisible beneath Death's cloak. The building loomed silent, unaware of what was coming. He didn't have to wait long. At 1:58, the intruder appeared. She dropped from the neighboring rooftop without a sound, no dramatic entrance, no flashy tech. Just pure precision. She wore form-fitting tactical gear that seemed to drink in shadows. Her face was hidden beneath a hood and mask combination that left only her eyes visible, dark, alert, constantly scanning. At exactly 2 a.m., she struck. The main power line fizzled and died in a brief shower of sparks. Backup generators, already sabotaged, never even hummed. Phoenix Group was plunged into blind, suffocating darkness. Impressive, Arthur thought, silently matching her pace as she slipped inside. The first guard never saw her coming. She slipped past his flashlight beam like smoke, hooked his arm mid-reach, and drove 2 fingers into his neck. He crumpled without a sound. The second guard managed half a warning into his radio intruder in before she flipped over his tackle, twisted midair, and clipped him at the base of the skull. He hit the ground like a dropped sack of grain. By the time reinforcements scrambled in, she was ready. What followed was 10 minutes of elegant violence. Arthur, floating above them, watched in quiet fascination. She dismantled his security team like she was rehearsing a routine. One guard's arm became a lever to throw another. A knife sliced at her throat. She sidestepped, caught the wrist, and pinned the blade through the attacker's sleeve into the wall. A brute of a guard lunged to grapple her. She let him get close, used his momentum to pivot him headfirst into a filing cabinet. As he sagged, dazed, she patted his cheek almost fondly before sending him to dreamland. No wasted motion. No hesitation. Every movement was deliberate, efficient, almost artistic. She wasn't here to kill. Just to get past. In the archives, she was all business. Her gloved fingers flicked through folders with purpose, not random searching, but hunting for something specific. Technology investments. Shell companies. Financial threads that might connect to something larger. Minutes later, she emerged empty-handed. Whatever she sought, she didn't find it. Arthur followed her as she vanished into the night. The air outside was cool and damp as she dropped into an alley behind the Phoenix building. She landed silently, crouched low, and scanned the street before straightening. "You're leaving without saying hello." Arthur's voice came from the shadows. She froze mid-step. Slowly, deliberately, her head turned. Her hand hovered near her thigh holster. "I wasn't aware I had company," she said coolly, her accent faintly European, hard to place. "You do now." Arthur stepped forward, letting the dim streetlight catch his face. "No more words." She struck. A straight punch, lightning fast. Arthur parried, redirecting her momentum, stepping inside her guard. She twisted like a dancer, knee rising toward his ribs. He blocked with his forearm, absorbed the impact, and pushed her back. "You're good," she noted, circling him. "You too," Arthur replied, calm and unhurried. She lunged again, a blur of jabs, elbows, and sweeps. Arthur had never formally studied martial arts, but his instincts, honed by countless spars with the masters of Kamarage, allowed him to match her. He blocked, evaded, and countered with a precise low kick that she deflected with her shin. She's matching me? The realization sent a thrill through him. Since the ritual, he'd operated at what he considered peak human capacity, faster, stronger, more durable than any natural athlete. Yet here she was, keeping pace blow for blow. The alleyway became their arena. Arthur ducked beneath a roundhouse kick that would have decapitated a lesser man, catching her leg mid-motion. He pivoted to slam her against the brick wall, but she twisted in his grip, using his own momentum to break free and land in a textbook-perfect three-point stance. "Who are you?" Arthur demanded between exchanges. No answer. Only measured breathing and eyes that never broke focus. She came harder this time, spinning heel kick into a sweep. Arthur leapt, but she rose with him, elbow slicing toward his temple. He twisted, took the blow on his shoulder, rolled, deflected her knife hand strike aimed at his throat. "Not bad," he admitted. She didn't waste breath on a reply. Her next combination was brutal, a series of rapid elbow strikes, each one aimed at his pressure points. Arthur blocked the first two, but the third slipped through, jamming into his ribs. Pain flared, but he gritted his teeth and countered with a knee to her stomach. She gasped but didn't retreat. Instead, she trapped his leg between hers and twisted, trying to take him down. Arthur braced, resisting the throw, but she used the leverage to flip him onto his back. He hit the ground hard, but before she could press the advantage, he swept her legs out from under her. She landed beside him, and for a brief moment, they were both on the ground, breathing hard. They rolled apart instantly. For a heartbeat, they lay mirrored, both assessing, both calculating next moves. Then they moved as one. Her free hand struck at his elbow joint. He released her to avoid the break, and she used the space to drive both feet into his chest. Arthur flew back, hit the alley wall, and pushed off it to avoid her flying knee. The brick cracked where his head had been. "Enhanced," she said, "not a question." "Could say the same about you," Arthur shot back, tasting copper at the back of his throat. They circled again, both breathing heavier now. Her style shifted, constantly fluid to sharp, deceptive, and dangerous. Arthur, for the first time in years, felt a thrill. He was enjoying this too much to end it with magic. But the finale came abruptly. She overextended on a high kick just slightly, probably testing his reaction. Arthur saw the opening and took it. He slipped inside her guard, trapped her extended leg with one arm while driving his shoulder into her center mass. She went down. Before she could recover, he had her pinned knee on her back, her arm locked behind her at an angle that promised pain if she struggled. With a free hand, Arthur tied her hands up with a rope he conjured. "Maybe you could escape these," he murmured, "but be warned, I won't be nearly as pleasant if you try." Only then did he sit her against the wall and peel away the mask. The face revealed was younger than he expected, perhaps his own age. European features, though the exact ethnicity eluded him. Sweat-damp strands of dark hair clung to sharp cheekbones. She blinked up at him, eyes dark and defiant. Her features were sharp but not delicate, a strength in her expression that reminded Arthur more of a soldier than a model. She was beautiful, yes, but in the current setting, it barely registered. Arthur had seen beauty before. Fleur Delacour had been ethereal. This girl was among the top in his ranking, but not enough to catch him off guard. "Talk," Arthur said. His tone was soft, but there was no mistaking the command in it. "Why did you break into my building?" She stared back, lips pressed thin. "Corporate espionage? Hired by competitors?" Silence. Arthur cocked his head. "Black Widow." "What?" Genuine confusion flashed across her features. "So not Red Room," Arthur mused. "Good. I'd hate to have attracted that attention already." When she remained silent, he sighed. "I have other means of getting answers. I'd prefer not to use them." His fingers twitched subtly, a threat of legitimacy she couldn't possibly understand. Something in his tone must have registered. "The Hand," she spat, as if the words were poison. Arthur asked, "You belong to the Hand?" "Never. I came to see if Phoenix Group had ties to them. If the group was just a front for their operations." Arthur tilted his head. "Why the suspicion?" "The CEO, Daniel Wong, has had dealings with them in the past. I also heard that Hand operatives were warned off your company." Arthur barked a laugh. "Daniel was forced into that world with no way out. Now he works for me willingly." Recognition flashed in her eyes. "Arthur Hayes. The mysterious owner of the Phoenix Group. The one and only." Do you serve the hand? She demanded. Arthur's smile held no warmth. Quite the opposite. We have a deadly feud, but since they have no way to deal with me, they decided to keep away. You expect me to believe that? Believe what you want, Arthur shrugged. If I were hand, would you still be breathing? Her jaw worked silently before she conceded the point. Okay, I believe you. I came to gather evidence. It's my mission to destroy them. Mission? Arthur's eyebrow arched. That's ambitious for a one-woman war. The hand has survived centuries for a reason. She glared. I am no ordinary woman. Yes, I can see that. Can you tell me how you became so strong? Silence. Even if you don't tell me, I can figure it out. You look human and there are no signs of any mutation. So nothing like that. Relationship with hand, which means relations with their abilities. You're a chi user, aren't you? Silence, but she did not look happy. Looks like I am right. Trained like them, but not one of them, he mused, piecing it together. That only leaves one real possibility. The chaste. That got a reaction. How do you know about the chaste? You lied. You are with the hand. I know many things, Arthur said mildly. Am I correct? She shook her head sharply. No. But... My father was chaste, she admitted, her voice wavering for a fraction of a second before hardening again. He died fighting the hand. His last wish was for me to take his mantle. Arthur's grip on the bindings loosened slightly. So you're chaste by inheritance? No, she said, her voice ringing with fierce independence. I belong to no one. I fight the hand because they are monsters who destroyed my family. That is all. For a long moment, Arthur just studied her. A warrior forged in the fires of revenge, fighting an impossible war alone. It was a story he understood all too well. He undid the bindings and offered her a hand up. She ignored it, rolling to her feet on her own. She asked, so what now? You call the police. Now you leave. Arthur stepped aside, clearing her path. Don't come back to Phoenix Group. There's nothing there for you. You're letting me go like this? She asked cautiously. You didn't hurt anyone permanently. You didn't take anything. You're not my enemy. Arthur adjusted his coat. And frankly, I'm curious to see how long you can keep this crusade going. You're really letting me go? No catch. Yes. But if you want my advice, you are no match for the hand. You are just one chi practitioner against many. You stand no chance. I don't care, she said, lifting her chin. I'll see them burn or die trying. A pointless death, Arthur observed. I will succeed, she said, a promise and a threat in one. Arthur just smiled. I'm sure you believe that. She studied him for a long moment before turning toward the alley's mouth. As she disappeared into the night, Arthur slipped his hands back into his pockets. I never asked her name, he realized. The thought lingered longer than it should have. In the span of an hour, he'd met someone who could match him physically, who understood the weight of revenge. Someone interesting. His parents' words echoed uninvited, make friends. Arthur shook his head sharply. Not important. She was a variable the stories he knew had never mentioned. A fighter of her caliber, not famous in any timeline he remembered. It meant only one thing. She failed. She was destined to be another casualty in a forgotten war, another ghost swallowed by the hand's darkness. But Arthur was not going to do anything. Yes, she was beautiful, but his emotionless self did not care about anything. This was her mission and hers alone. Unless Hand came at him again, he would leave them alone. Forgetting the girl, Arthur considered his next move. He couldn't go home yet, his past self would be there. He stepped out of the alley and began to roam the sleeping city, a ghost with time to kill.
Additionally, if you would like to request novels and access my Google Drive where I have 200+ audiobooks, then you can join my Patreon. Link is also provided in the description.